learn some tricks where you do stuff with your head.
It finally works.
Swearing is for losers. I need to do some.
YouTube is amazing every time. Anyway,
No, I need to change my style today.
oh, we are live by the way. I mean, I'm not sure if you know.
Like that. That's gonna be better. I try to put different things on my head just to make it more interesting every time.
Are you gonna say hello and ask me how I am and I respond fine? Or
Yeah, hello, how are you?
fine?
All right. What's the next thing on the piece of paper we have prepared for today?
Awkward silence before we decide.
So first of all,
So,
happy Easter for whoever is, Jesus gang people, whatever.
happy Easter to you specifically.
Thanks, man. Historically, it's been an accurate phrase to use with me. Um, and let's talk about Easter now.
Sure.
What do you think?
By the way, you know, I saw there in the store someone sent me. You can actually now today in this modern society,
Yeah.
you can buy painted eggs in a box. You know, you don't have to paint them.
Well, of course. If you can buy sliced bread, why not
Yeah.
buy dyed eggs why don't I just experiment with my hairstyle in the meantime? Make it a little bit more, make myself look like that. You know, I
Uh,
watched a video of a guy who there was like some sort of a story about a guy who was very famous for holding some world records on some old games like Donkey Kong and other games. And the guy was they turn out to be a complete scam, and like he lied about it, and he paid some people in the companies that they were measuring these scores. They accepted the fake scores, and he had this long hair like Jesus hair on both sides, and they and in the comments someone wrote, we gotta thank this man for inventing the hoodie because it looked like a hoodie, like when he was wearing it. And this guy's such a faggot. Like it's like this guy's you don't know the story, and you look at him and you immediately know that there's something wrong with him. Do you ever see people like that? They're like me right now. When you see them and you go immediately, there's something wrong with this person.
yeah, every morning in the mirror. By the way, yeah, I saw also when I mentioned this, I saw the Tetris, the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah,
I was so busy at work. I was like,
yeah.
fuck, I'll just watch 1 hour Tetris tournament.
But I didn't send
Just
it to
what
you
the
to watch the
fuck?
whole thing. I just wanted to show you. I mean, you could have
What you did?
selectively watched bits of it, but it's so interesting.
Actually, it wasn't that long because in the end there were like 20 minutes of nothing.
Right. But
But
wasn't it
yeah,
fascinating? Like, this is so cool, man.
yeah, and in this like it's a thing now. I mean, it's growing now. Like the last several years,
Yeah.
it's been like suddenly people want to play Tetris and watch it.
But man,
Like
these guys are
competitive.
coming up with new techniques and shit. Like they do this hyper tapping thing where, like, do you see their hands? They go like this on the controller. They will play on the old
Oh
original
wow.
Nintendo controllers, so they don't hold them like this. Like if I
Yeah.
have like
Yeah,
this is
I
the
know.
new
I know
one,
this
so
one
it doesn't
called.
count. But they don't
Yeah.
hold it this way. They play like this.
Yeah. So what's that about?
Well, it's faster apparently, and it's
Wow.
like they're super fast. They go like this. It's called hyper tapping, and these 16, 70-year-old kids like crush it, man. They get to levels where no one has ever gotten to.
Yeah, I think that it's always kids with these games because when you're young, your reflexes are
Yeah.
better. Always, you can't compete.
But this
I
video
mean,
in
that's with every game.
But this video in particular was really cool because, like, I'm not much into watching sports, but it felt like a sport. Like the commentators, like there was a live audience. They were watching this, and it was like exciting. The two guys were like, because it was two people fighting each other, and it was
Yeah.
like exciting. The commentators were into it. They're like, oh man, oh you got it, oh yeah. And it's like they were because at that level, they're not just competing to just like to make it, but everything counts. Like you gotta have more points, so you gotta drop more of the vertical lines. So that's what they call
Yeah.
Tetris. I didn't know that was called Tetris, but apparently, if you like line up the whole thing and you have just space enough for
Yeah.
four pixels, you put them down, and that's a Tetris, and that gives you more points than if you just cross three or two or one. So that they want to get as many of these Tetrises, and it's like
Yeah.
I don't know, it's exciting.
I mean, I'm not sure about scoring if it's fair or whatever. Yeah, I mean, it's just maybe that's the as far as it will go because I'm not sure what more to do there.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty straightforward.
I haven't
Yeah,
experimented enough with my hair, I think, in my life. I need to remember when in the 90s this was a popular
yeah.
thing.
Uh,
People would do this,
Backstreet.
and on both sides, and it would go like
Yeah, one of the Backstreet Boys was like that, wasn't it?
that was the thing, man, for the longest time. Uh,
Now they're. Have you seen them now? The Backstreet Boys.
I watched something on Facebook Live.
Actually, I really liked one of their new. Oh yeah, one of them. Jesus. I really loved one of their newer songs. It was really nice. Like I liked it unironically. Actually that's maybe my favorite Backstreet Boys song.
Yeah,
Like it's it in the newest album.
I don't know that.
It was then.
That's the thing about me. I don't
Anyway,
follow much like new releases. That's kind of a shame because I don't know. I mean only like one or two people I follow, and then the rest of it is just old stuff. But I keep discovering new old stuff at least. So like like now I'm listening to some jazz shit, like some Coltrane and some,
yeah, it's called Chances, and the video is really nice. Anyway,
yeah, yeah. What hair were you wearing when you were a kid? Do you remember?
this one that you see right now.
But what
No,
kind
I don't
of
know.
hairstyle?
The whatever. I never even. And like there was always when you go to the stylist, you had to say like he asked you like what do you want,
Yeah.
and they were like, oh, I want three, I want two. I still don't know what these numbers mean. I was like, I don't know, I just want shorter, the same but shorter.
Yeah. I'm like two of these and one of that place.
But I don't know, I tried actually 2 3 years ago, remember, but it didn't go very well.
Yeah.
Now for some reason I won't think it will be different, and I'll try the same.
Yeah.
But no.
Well, you should go for the long hair. You should go.
Thing is, every time I'm approaching these spiritual experiences, I guess I decide it's time for long hair,
Yeah.
and yeah. But my next spiritual experience will be delayed, I guess, or not. I'm not sure yet.
Yeah.
Maybe it's who knows. Actually, now they made here in Bulgaria, like they first about the masks. They're like, we'll make them obligatory. Then the next day they said, oh, actually, we won't.
Yeah.
And now again, since today they are obligatory.
Yeah, I heard that, and now I don't know because I'm coming back, so I don't know where if I should buy masks here, if they will arrest me immediately as I step off the plane. How was?
Probably.
Yeah.
In the store today, I saw like there was one like they're going now like Gillette way. It's like it's a whole industry now. Like Gillette was, one razor, two razors, three razors. Now
Yeah.
there's a mask with 3 layers, whatever this means,
Yeah.
and it costs like 12 levs, which is like $7. So what the fuck
Yeah.
for like a mask? It was supposed to be like cents.
And then then they're gonna be like a whole industry surrounding stuff like washing machines for masks and dryers, mask dryers and mask
Yeah, no.
dyers and upgrade kits for masks.
Also has some like different prints on them. Like fuck.
Yeah. Imagine these Mortal Kombat ninjas going, God damn it, we knew it. We always knew it.
Yeah, and yeah.
These guys now are like millionaires probably.
I can't wait for the new South Park season. It will be probably one of their best. Actually, don't watch South Park, probably.
I'm not
You
watching
don't?
it now.
Because they always make every season is like a commentary of whatever happened. Actually, they're very fast reacting. Sometimes there's like the new season, like it starts and they comment on something that happened 2 days ago. It was like I don't know how they do it that fast,
Yeah.
but yeah.
We gotta be
I mean,
faster,
this-
man. I have a feeling
this-
like if I get shot, I'll probably realize next week and talk about it. Like, we
Yeah.
got faster at reacting stuff.
Yeah.
At things. Reacting to life.
Oh yeah, talking about that, let's comment on the R. Kelly documentary.
Oh yeah, let's go.
That I
Because
just
this is just happened now.
No, I mean, I was thinking like, what the fuck this guy was doing all of this, like nothing happened for such a long time. He was doing that in front of everyone,
Yeah.
and I was wondering what changed now so that suddenly it's a thing. And I was just wondering if it's something to do with the social media craze.
Yeah, because wasn't it a little bit before the Me Too with him?
It was much before, like they started suing him in 2000 and the
Yeah.
court was delayed and like for 8 years or something, then they sued
Right.
him, then they paid everyone, and like he was not guilty. Yeah.
So what was it? What was? Is he in jail now? What was the thing? I don't
Yeah,
remember.
now he's in jail, and everyone started hashtagging, and I don't know, I was wondering, like, maybe now when everyone can make it about themselves, now it's a thing, when everyone can be like, oh, I'm against that, hashtag mute. It's
Man,
weird.
do you remember? Have you watched this interview where he gave a couple years ago? Was it like right before they put him into jail? He had this interview with this black
Where
reporter.
he breaks down.
Yeah, 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 where he
Yeah, yeah, I
cries.
saw him. That was what the
Man, it's
fuck.
so
But he was
crazy.
always like that. Like every time he was like playing some victim card. Anyway, the thing
No,
is, what
it's
I found it was weird because this documentary was so like weird and kind of hypocrite. Like no one's they were interviewing people that were helping him, like assistants, and no
yeah.
one like looks for anything from them. It's like okay, like and they were like, oh, I was there, I saw it. It looked weird, but you know,
Yeah.
like what good? I just did it.
Wasn't his brother there too? Like one of the guys was.
But yeah, but his brother was for him. He was like defending him
Yeah, yeah.
constantly. And
Man.
also, what I found really weird, there was one girl. She was obviously lying to me. Like she was there. I'm not sure if you remember, but she was. Her story was. It was so weird. Like it was like someone telling a story that wasn't there, but things that she said things that the way she described it is like she would just think like she just imagined how it would be if she was there. Like she said, okay, he made me like take my clothes off. I was walking around like on a podium, and then like when they
Oh, the
asked
one
her,
that was living in the house that went to the
no,
back.
there were many of them, but this particular one, I don't know, she didn't, the words she used were like so few and. Then they did the thing that made her leave was like, oh, he started choking me and I blanked and I hit the ground. I was like, what the fuck? And then they asked her like, what did he do like like to the abusive things that he did. She just like covered her eyes. There were like no tears. She just oh, I can't do it. Like left the camera. It's like what? I mean,
Yeah,
but
well, these
that's what
cases are
just
like it's all very complicated because I don't know. Well, it's abuse and it's the psychological element and they were brainwashed and all this, but there's also like the legal aspect and maybe some of them have actually received some money, but then they're like, okay, you can do this documentary, but just avoid saying this and that, or there's like all of these loopholes that they use in these documentaries. That yeah, it's weird in some cases. But the scariest part were these two girls that were the last two that stood by his side. Remember the mother that was going to the hotel to meet the daughter, and that was like the scariest part because that was like all of the other stories they were just talking about them historically, but those
yeah,
stories
yeah,
they actually recorded while they were doing the documentary. In a sense, I mean, not they didn't record what was happening behind closed doors, but they showed the
yeah.
girls and they really looked distressed and they looked like really fucking like zombies, like in this cult. It was fucked up,
And
man.
also, first thing that was this tape that started the thing. Like people
Yeah.
realized it might be real, but they still didn't believe it. I mean, this tape, like it was so random. Like he just decided to record it and it leaked. Like it was his like dumb
And he
mistake.
was leaking on the tape too,
Yeah.
and
No,
and it
like
was like
my
and they were
point was
talking
like,
about the cultural aspect, right? Because like I remember Chappelle was doing bits on his show about it. He did a whole sketch where he was R. Kelly peeing on
yeah,
girls. Like it became a popular thing, and people still and they talked about it though. They talked about that angle, which is interesting because
yeah,
in his particular case, it was a black guy um, taking advantage of mostly black girls, and in the black community there was very little support for these girls and a lot of fucking hatred and a lot of like older girls are like, oh fuck these bitches, they're getting paid, and the other guys were like laughing about it. And it was like really they were trying to make a point that when if this was happening to white people they would
yeah,
all be together about it, and,
yeah.
and
For
they're
sure, it would be much different. Yeah. Uh, yeah. I mean, I was just wondering because I can only imagine like how many people were doing this then, and they just didn't record themselves. Like, nothing happened to them also, either. Now I don't know. And it was also weird because like he was like so close to actually being guilty. Like everyone was surprised he was found not guilty, because just the parents said that's not their daughter, which was obviously they were paid. But even after that, he just continued doing it. He was like, thank you God that whatever I got away. Then right away he went back to it. The next 10 years he continued doing that. Even got
Right.
worse actually. He was just more careful, like no tapes, no nothing.
Right.
That was what the fuck, man.
And you know what's scary is like that all of that makes you think how big a part of this is celebrity and money because this guy obviously he's a freak, but if he wasn't in the position that he was in, he wouldn't have access to all these people that were helping the whole infrastructure, the guys that were paid
Yeah.
to make this happen and disappear. So he would end up abusing much less people. So it makes you wonder which people and how many people are doing this now.
Yeah, exactly. They're just
And
not
and
capable.
because there are always stories that come out once in a while. Like I remember reading about Drake, and like I remember this girl from Stranger Things, and she's underage. And there is a sort of a kind of a line like similar with this first. What was her name, Aaliyah, or the first girl she married that was underage.
Yeah, earlier, yeah.
So there is a story about
But
the
she
relationship.
died. She died.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But in an airplane crash. So I'm wondering now, was this a murder?
Right.
Or,
But I'm saying is like there are rumors about Drake and
yeah,
this girl from Stranger Things and like what if the fact that these people have so much money and Drake is like the most I think the top sold artist musically in the last at least since 2013 or something. He's on number one.
yeah.
He's fucking insane, money wise, So
But now
and these
they'll
guys
be
are
more
learning
careful
from
now.
these other
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this documentary happened because so many things happened, like so many things, like made it.
yeah.
It was just one thing. He would continue doing that, but and he was really stupid about it. Like fuck. Well, yeah. Also, it's so ironic because it's I saw kind of similar to Tiger King. You haven't seen Tiger King, but he's
No,
also
not
in
yet.
jail now,
Okay.
but for doing nothing in the end. He just it's actually very interesting because he wanted apparently he's in jail because he wanted to murder this woman. Uh, he paid apparently to some murderer who actually shot his pants and he ran away. Like nothing happened. I mean, it's very retarded. Like you should see it, but he's in jail now for 22 years for for that, like right away. And actually, in this woman, there's like strong evidence that she actually murdered her husband like 20 years ago and fed it to her tigers. But
Wow.
she's free now. Like she's the
So that's
murderer.
the one that's like the big competition, right? Because they were
Yeah,
competing. I know from the
It's
trailer. This is the one.
yeah. This one, yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
she's
you're
free
saying
now.
she might have
Yeah.
killed someone
No,
successfully.
she has. Yeah, it's pretty obvious. Like everything. If you
Wow.
see it, it's. And now I read some articles that she's not happy with Netflix, like the way they did the documentary. They kind of tricked her. It wasn't supposed to be like that. It was supposed to be some other documentary or something.
Yeah.
It was very weird. I was wondering how did they do it? Like she shouldn't be okay with it, but apparently she's not because they tricked her in some way.
Yeah, and that's also another interesting thing. And think about all these guys who are involved in these documentaries, and sometimes they risk their asses doing this. Like there was um, there was some story someone was talking about. God damn it, I forgot the name of it. Jinx or something like that, where the guys were so obsessed with the story that they couldn't get the rights or some shit like that, and they made a fiction movie based on the story with actors. And then after the success of this movie, they got to talk to the real person and he confesses. So they make another movie, which is a documentary, and in it, the guy confesses, and now he's in jail. But I forgot the name of it. It's like such an incredible story.
Hmm.
I think Jason Bateman was in the fiction movie, I think, or someone, and then they actually helped. So the documentarians that they helped close the case in a sense. And that's why you should watch Making a Murderer because this one was so interesting because it was there are so many petitions and everything and even before but now especially after the documentary too because the idea I mean I'm not going to spoil it much by saying the premise which is the idea is that this guy well he was framed at least that's the angle of the documentary he didn't do it and he's in jail right but then immediately as they did the documentary then the other guys, the prosecution, which was like the bad guys in the movie, then they did their own documentary, or maybe they're making it right now, or something like this, and they're gonna release it on another network, the anti-documentary. So first, the prosecutor wrote a book, then he's making it into an anti-documentary. So it's like super bizarre, you know, like it's a whole business of documentaries and
Yeah, what is happening?
yeah.
Also, they took over YouTube at some point. You know,
Who's that?
now the documentaries. Everyone's making the documentaries on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like a year ago, maybe still.
Well, maybe like you know, in the early 2000s, it was the reality TV era. Now it's maybe the documentary
Yeah,
era.
exactly. Yeah.
People get obsessed.
But I prefer that, you know, as long as they're real.
Yeah, but of course, I mean, they can also be abused and manipulated and manipulative. You know, you
Yeah,
decide
but
how to
this will
frame it.
probably happen now, like the second stage of documentaries, you know, after the first wave of real ones.
You know, because if you think about it, it's like even history. You know, it was written. You know, it's the saying, history is written by the victors. Like like history has been rewritten so many times for political reasons, and you selectively choose which documents to show in which cases, in which
Yeah,
textbooks,
yeah.
when to teach kids this happened, when to tell them this happened. So there's always it's always flavored with some agenda, with some angle to it, and same as with documentaries. Because otherwise maybe it's even impossible, because if you really 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 want to be objective, then you sort of have no direction. Like you don't know like which side to follow, which person to follow. You know, it's like almost becomes not it's not interesting for one. Um, but yeah, I mean it's interesting. I mean I've seen a lot of these documentaries, especially about these killers on Netflix, and they're scary. Like there was this other one. This I think it was a writer who is pretty obvious that, well, I don't know, but yeah, it seemed obvious to me that he pushed this woman down, his wife down some stairs, and she fell and she died. And then he calls the cops, and they come in, and the whole thing is like, no, no, she fell. But it was like for sure she didn't fall. And
Yeah,
like
but that's not how you kill someone. Why would you kill him like that? You know?
no, no, that was the thing. I think that later they discovered like she was strangled before, and then
Ah,
there was some uh, other
yeah.
bumps on her head, like I don't somewhere, like someone hit her on the head before
Damn.
she fell down the stairs. So there were all these fucking things, and yeah, there are many of these movies. It's very interesting.
But it looks like in USA it's so easy to kill someone. You know,
Mm.
they just don't be a retard about it. Like
Yeah,
they don't have much jurisdiction to do anything. Like in this R. Kelly too, they were like right in front of the building where this woman's daughter, she was inside, and like we can't do anything. You know,
right.
we need some
And
more.
and and to my mind comes a story where, which is also I think I'm not sure if it was actually made into a movie or a documentary. It's also on Netflix called The Innocent Man, but I haven't seen it because I read the book, and I don't want to. I know that it's not going to be as detailed as the book. And the book was one of the two, I think, nonfiction books that John Grisham wrote. You know, the guy who writes all these legal novels, is famous for The Firm
Yeah,
and other legal novels. And he wrote this one called The Innocent Man, about a guy who was exonerated in the early 90s for a crime he didn't commit when they discovered DNA analysis, right? So he was convicted for raping some woman. And back then in the 80s or whatever, whenever they caught him, it was I think it was the early 80s or something. Um, it was just like follicles, hair follicles, and some other weird shit, which is super unreliable. And they convict him because he fits the picture, you know, because the cops also have pressure. They have to arrest someone. You know, imagine a young girl was raped and killed. You know, someone has to pay for it. Someone has to go to jail. Otherwise, the police is not doing their job. The mayor's under pressure. Everyone's under pressure. This guy fits the profile. All right, let's put him in. They put him in. They win. It's a victory, right? And then 20 years later, these guys from this Innocence Project, these couple lawyers who decided in the States, a real thing, that to represent people who didn't have money to hire lawyers, and dig through the evidence again. So they discover the guy. Well, it's pretty easy to check in a rape case, right? Because they have the samples, they have the sperm, and it wasn't his. And it turns out it was another guy who was already in prison for a different crime. and they let him out, but the guy can't live back in society, and ultimately he dies a few years later because he was completely broken by the system. And the whole book is just describing in such detail how fucking destroyed the legal system in the States is,
Yeah.
how it's all fucking broken, like the industries that supply the prisons, how it's a whole industry of, like, they're making money from based on the amount of people that are incarcerated, like the more people you have, the more these companies will
Yeah, they
sell.
also have. I mean, John Oliver had a episode about the prisons also.
Right.
If
And
you
how the conditions deteriorated since, like, I don't know, the 60s, the 70s. And right now it's like they try to fill twice as many, three times as many people in the same old buildings. They change them, they keep adding new beds. It's heartbreaking, this novel. I mean, it's a non-fiction account of these events, and all of these people are real people and real names, it's just fucking crazy, like what happened. And this is just one person. It happened thousands of times. And The Wire is also showing you that, but in The Wire it's different because there you have like the more kind of the rich criminals, or they don't show as much the low life guys. But it's also kind of, The Wire is nice in one very interesting aspect. I didn't talk about this, but now during the COVID thing, I rewatched The Wire. So I watched it for the first time. Pardon me. And what's interesting about this show is that it's unlike any other show I have ever seen, because it's 5 seasons, and every season is a completely different angle on the same story. It's all Baltimore, and it's every season it's a different thing. In one season you have the cops and the criminals, the pretty standard story. But in the next one you have like the Docklands, and like the, what do you call this, the union, of the workers who are working there and exporting, importing stuff, which is also part of the drug trade, right? Because they import drugs. Then you have, in the next season, you have the school system, and you have teachers, and you have kids who then become criminals. And then, in the next season, you have journalists and how they are part of the story too. And you have the political angle and how the politicians are part of it. And they built this huge uh, ecosystem of related things. Like everything is super related, and there's no good and bad people. Everyone is great. The cops are great. The criminals are great. The journalists are great, because everyone exaggerates and pulls in some direction that's not very not completely honest, and everyone has some interest in it. And the whole exists in this fucking ecosystem like an aquarium. Everything is related. Everything is filtered, and every element passes through all the organisms in the aquarium. It's crazy. And the fact was that this show was written by a guy who was a journalist for, like, the creator of the show for like 20 years in Baltimore. He was writing about these cases, and then he gets another guy, the co-writer, who's a former cop for 20 years, who knows all of these things. Then they hire local people, including cops, who actually audition for parts to play themselves. And some of them play themselves, some of them play other guys because they're not good enough to play themselves, I guess. And they find local actors. They shoot everything on location, every street, every fucking corner. Everything is just as it's written in the script. They go to that particular spot. And then they hire, in addition to that, a bunch of writers who are not script writers. They're not screenwriters, but they're novelists who've written criminal novels. So they get these guys from the literary world to try to come up with these amazing storylines, and you end up with this super interesting, super fucking weird show where it's unlike anything else, because in every story you have like there's a story, they follow the story. And this one is this everything happens is this like watching a circus, where you see, oh, there's a guy juggling, and at the same time here's an elephant, and there's some monkeys, and it's like everything together, which is very very difficult to pull off, and it's all super related. So it's kind of difficult for your attention to because I watched the video. A guy explained it very easily, and he said, the Wire is not a show that grabs your attention; it requires it. Like, you need to pay attention, because if you blink, like, you miss something, and then everything is kind of important. Uh, but yeah, it's maybe the most realistic. I'm talking about documentaries. Maybe the closest show to a documentary there is this thing, The Wire. It's not like shows that I've seen before. It's not like shows the way that they're done normally, because the show is only promising to deliver on honesty and try to create as real a picture as possible. It's not driven by characters. It's not driven by the story. It's driven by reality. It's trying to be faithful to the real world, which is very different, a different motivation than a lot of these other shows. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, should see it. Yeah, I've always wanted to see it, but it's like I gotta plan it and make time for these 5 seasons. By the way, can you reduce your mic sensitivity? It's
I don't
clipping
know
a
how.
bit. There, you don't have a like a toggle
No,
at the mic.
it's the
Really?
Logi mic.
What? The login mic. Oh, come on, man. Oh yeah, right. Fuck. Yeah, yeah, that's the problem. Okay. So there is no solution. I mean, no, it's not that bad, but anyway.
Um,
So, yeah, fuck. By the way, I biked yesterday. I
yeah,
went to the mountain finally. I mean, for the second time, and at least this time it wasn't full of people. I don't know how they managed to do that. Maybe they were actually finding them, but
of course.
no one find me though. But something like weird. I was like biking and uh, there were a few people actually. Like, there weren't exactly no people, and I passed these women and they were like old women and I like passed them and one of them was she told me like by the way aren't bikes prohibited today like I don't know and then she immediately told to her the other one you see I told my husband he was like they're prohibited you see they're not what
And these guys are dead now, thanks to you,
yeah no
because now
my point was I didn't say they aren't I said I don't know and she immediately
well, it doesn't matter. You're influencing history.
no, I was just wondering, was she even listening when I responded? I mean, she already thought I said yes and didn't listen at all. Like, what the hell happened in this conversation? But, yeah, no. Maybe she just wanted
Imagine them
to.
now. They're somewhere in the mountain on a tandem bike, the two of them, and the cops are chasing them
No,
down. And like, well, I asked the boy.
I mean, I think she just wanted to be right and tell her husband that she's right. So, I should have said, yeah, they're prohibited. Anyway, or something. I don't know. Maybe then she would accept it. Um,
Tell people you're the cop. Tell them I'm undercover.
and on the way down, my brakes, because I always I don't speed that much, so I'm using the brake a lot. They were so hot, like I touched it and it was like fire got burnt from the brake.
You gotta change that. Do you change it? Do you ever add like what is this thing that you change the brake? Have you ever
Um,
taken the bike to a bike shop to change the
yeah, I
brake?
changed it like recently. I was the start of every season I changed them, but maybe I need some other mm, brake, like other mechanism. We have a question from.
Yes.
Actually, I remember this guy from somewhere. Ivo Grant, do you remember him? Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. He
Again
was, I
the.
think, commenting before on
Mm,
maybe the first video.
nice. He again wonders why we are trying to be Americans and don't.
How are we talking in English? No. Well, it's a good question. And this time I'm gonna let you have it.
Ah, I'm talking
Because
English.
every time I address this,
Because when someone. Okay, you want my perspective on it.
yeah, for the first time I
Because
care about your
it would
voice.
be weird if someone talks to me in English and I respond in Bulgarian. That would be
Exactly,
weird.
and
So
that's how
that's
it
the
also
reason.
works.
The first word was from Bogi. He said hello. Like the first time we met each other, I was like, fuck, I can't respond with in Bulgarian. So
Exactly.
ever since then, it's been like that.
It's been a social experiment lasting for over 10 years and 15 years now, and still counting. It's a game. It's really a game. And I hope that Steph one day loses
The
and
thing is,
finally.
we're trying to, first to, I guess, become better at it. At least I hope, for me, because you've achieved perfection. And it's always better to be talking the universal language, not the Bulgarian ones that we're like 5 people in Bulgaria. whatever.
See, I should ask you more things because you very eloquently explained. Uh, you're right. We're trying really to test our abilities in a different language. So then, once we know we're perfect, we can return to Bulgarish languages, and then we're the best. Now we try this English thing, because we don't want to embarrass, we don't want to abuse the Bulgarian language, in vain. Don't use the
Thing is,
Bulgarian.
I'm reading in English. You're reading in English too. We're watching like movies in English. Like
Yeah,
YouTube is in English.
right.
I'm programming, so it's the English there. It's not
Yeah.
Bulgarian. It's fine, but there isn't. I don't know. It's like a more of a compromise to speaking Bulgarian than in English.
Yeah.
And we were watching like these things that are universal, like these topics we follow and whatever.
Yeah.
But here it's always everyone is in their closed circle here. Whatever happens in Bulgaria, which is always some dumb shit 20 years behind everything else. Like with music, with YouTube even. Like they're still vlogging, I think, which was done 10 years ago or whatever. It's, I don't know.
Yeah. In other words, we think we're better.
Yeah.
We think we're better than that. No, I don't know. Ibogan, what do you think? Tell us, what do you think? Why don't you, instead of just asking questions, because you know us already, this is maybe at least your second question to us, so you know us pretty well. Tell us what you think. Why do we do it? And then we can have a discussion about it. And maybe
I can
make
tell what many people, not him, but many people think that we're pretentious.
exactly. But let him figure it out first. Let's not.
I don't know. I was wondered about this because where they come from is like, oh fuck, but you're Bulgarians. You should stick to it's your identity. You can't. How dare you?
Yes,
You should
exactly.
be Bulgarians your whole
And
life.
me, yeah.
How dare
And
you go out
meanwhile,
of your
they're fucking you know doing other things. They're eating Italian pizza and drinking coffees and doing other things. I think they're right. I think we should go back to the core and try to be as Bulgarian as possible. Use every means necessary.
yeah. Of
What?
course, it's amazing. Your whole life you're talking shit about the government and everything that's around you in Bulgaria, and then you're like, oh, but it's the best country, it's the best language, it's everything's great, and then you go out and start shitting everywhere, like throw your trash around. It's the best country. You should make it horrible.
No, but actually today I got a new fan on the old channel, which every once in a while it happens, I guess. Um, and it was very interesting because it started by completely shitting on my life and everything I've ever done, and then it changed into, I don't know. I guess that person first saw me and I was like, oh, this guy is fucking really bad and I hate it. And then he watched a couple more videos and I see like, oh, okay, so you know how YouTube sends me emails when someone comments.
Yeah.
So the first comment is from 1:23 p.m. Then the next one is 1:47. So it's been whatever, 24 minutes later. And then 1:55. So it's another 10 minutes later. And so the guy is spending like 30 minutes watching videos and commenting every 15 minutes. And the first comment is, this is on the old channel, okay? The first comment is on one of the trailers for one of my stand-up shows, one of the like videos that I was inviting people to the show, and it's the name is, I don't know if this is his real name, Serkan Hussein, very typically Bulgarian name, and then Serkan is saying, or Hussein, I don't know which was the first name. He's saying, okay, so there you go, a little Bulgarian. Само аз ли го смятам за противен? Which is, am I the only one who thinks this guy is, what is
Disgusting.
is the opposite? No, am I the only one who thinks this guy is disgusting? And there's three question marks, no, three exclamation marks. Then the next comment 20 minutes later is on another video from the show, the old show, where I'm talking about some stuff, some news, and I'm talking about the army, the Bulgarian army, and I'm not saying that at all in the video, but he's writing, И хомосексуалните прояви в казармата. Like he's adding an additional information to my video, which means, and also the homosexuals in the army. So he wants to add something that I missed apparently in this video.
He's helping
And
now.
he's helping. And in the third video, so already 20 minutes from being disgusted, now he's helping me out do my job. And of a video from 2017 that he finds interesting. And now on the third video, which is from one of my stand-ups from 2014, he's saying, oh, and it's a bit where I talk about relationships, and he writes, в БГ няма момичета, които се задълбочават така в социалните връзки и мисленето. Kurveta, and with a capital. So he's saying in Bulgaria there's no girls that go deep into relationships and into social relationships and thinking. Whores. All right. So now he's like inspired by what I'm saying and taking it to the next level. He's reading between the lines, things I've never said.
Yeah, he's in, but not.
He's
spied.
completely now already, what do you call it?
Incel.
Converted.
Incel.
Yeah. So starting from someone who's disgusted by watching a trailer of 1 minute video, he's disgusted.
Yeah.
Then he's like, yeah, and the faggots too, you know. And then he's like, yeah, and the girls, they're whores, you know. So he's like really kind of really understanding the message that I'm sending.
Send him the podcast, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's the Evo. It's probably Evo, right? He asks why did you stop the show? Was it a
Right.
weekend show? Oh yeah, it was every week. Yeah. Wow.
Mm.
Damn. Remember that?
I remember that. It was fucking a lot of work. And that's also the answer. Well, I mean, I've talked about it so many times. It's just, you know, I moved to a different country, and I couldn't do it the same way I did it, and yeah, and I moved to something else.
Oh, you spoke Bulgarian there, so obviously everyone is happy.
Yeah.
And he also wants to join the podcast now.
Wants to be on the podcast now. All right, we're gonna invite him later when we get to 50,000 subscribers. He's gonna be.
No, wait, step by step. Let's get to 5 first, then.
I think one person subscribed yesterday or something. I think.
Oh yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. We should celebrate. It's like a.
I don't
Easter-
know. I think
Easter
also 5 unsubscribed, so I'm not sure if that's a celebration. Let's get to a positive balance.
Right. Positively speaking, I did another trip I told you about 2 days ago
Yeah, where to which country?
to a country of mushrooms. And that was pretty cool again. I dropped 10 grams of dried mushrooms. But this time, you know, because with mushrooms it's interesting because you can't overdo it because your body gets used to it. So it ended up being much milder than it should have
Wait,
been.
how long did you wait? 5 days?
6 days.
Oh, 6. Huh.
So, but I still thought, you know, I mean, there's no specific formula or anything out there. The only information that I've read is that if you do it the very next day, you need twice as much to have the same experience. The third day, you need 3 times as much, and by the 4th day, it doesn't affect you. That is something
No,
I've read.
wait. The second day it's 2 times, the third day it's 3 times. What?
Yeah, something like that. I remember reading it.
You mean if you do it every day? Okay.
Yeah. So I thought, well, a week, it's not that bad. Maybe doing 10 grams would be like doing 5, right? Which is still a lot. And it wasn't. Like, it was much milder.
Mm.
But nevertheless, it was very profound.
Wait, but you took so many the first time, no?
I did 10 the first time, and now
But
10
why
again.
are you doing even 10? Like, isn't the maximum 5?
Yeah, because I have so much, and I don't want to throw them away, you know. And
Well, you fucked up. I think that's what fucked up your second time. You did too much.
too much the first time, you mean? Oh, could be.
Uh,
Is there a comment or what?
no, I'm watching some other shit. Sorry.
Watching video.
No, I had to order food, and I saw there is sushi, and I was like, oh my god.
All right. Well, I mean, yeah. So to say, I wrote to you. I mean, it was a really nice experience. I had a couple of nice musical moments, which was cool. And
Oh yeah, I really like actually the thing you said about
The healing.
The healing. Oh yeah, exactly that. Actually,
what were you thinking?
it's made a lot of sense. I mean, you can tell that like the analogy you made with massages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, I had a moment when I was kind of coming up to it, I took out my guitar and I started playing, and I had a couple moments. So I had one moment where I was playing just by myself, and it was like deeper into it when I was kind of peaking. So it was like really, I was hearing so much more sound than this guitar has ever produced, and like I was like, wow, and like that was like I was being possessed by something, like
Yeah.
some spirit was playing through me, like I was just being used, and then at the end like discarded, but like almost like being raped by this music. But it was like the biggest honor to be used as this device to produce this thing, because it was very weird. Like when it stopped. It surprised me. The song just stopped. Like it had to end, And I just like what I just and it was like really like as if I was I don't know, a host on Westworld, and someone overrides me, and then I wake up and like what? And it was like that. Like I was doing something that I wasn't really consciously aware of. I was just as much uh, participating as a fan and listening to it as much as I was a part of it. Like something was channeled through me, and that was a one very nice experience. And the other experience when I was kind of coming up was I started playing and I was listening to music along. I was playing along with music, so and I'm improvising. I'm soloing, and as I'm soloing over it, I close my eyes and I start having these really nice visuals. It was like that. It was sunny because it was during the day this time I did it, and it was like in the afternoon, like around this time. And so it was sunny, and like I was seeing these very nice golden colors and these fractals and everything. It was pretty cool. And then as I'm playing, uh, I'm feeling like I'm following a melody right around. It's like a story I'm following around, and I'm following it, and in some moments, I reach some points where there's like there's more pain or pressure accumulated in these
Tension. Yeah.
tension in these points. So I try to work them. I examine them and I play over them more, the analogy that you mentioned is it felt like when you go to a massage therapist or like to a masseuse or whatever it's called, and they massage you, they feel for points of tension on your muscles or tendons. They feel a point where like it's stiff, and so they work it hard to relieve that tension in that place. So it felt like that. I was relieving, like almost, removing that tension and resolving it musically into a point where it, uh, like you have what's the word in English? Устойчивый and неустойчивый tone. You have places where the music is kind of like
Sustainable? No.
yeah, I don't know what's the exact word, but like
Stay
for example,
stable. Like the board is stable.
yeah, like the fourth and the seventh tone of each octave is
Yeah.
or scale is called that
Resolve.
unsustainable. But anyway, so you resolve it into the bass tone on the first, the third, the fifth, and that resolution was natural, and it was like that relief. But at the same time, it was very interesting because it was not just musically, but that was also emotional because I was feeling that tension, and then the resolution. It was like happy, coming out of this.
Makes a lot of sense because
And also it was just very tactile and physical because maybe especially with the guitar, you feel the vibration of the string and you're pressing and you feel the pain on your fingers, and they accumulate that vibration too. So the more you work that area, the more like it becomes a physical pain as well, and then the relief is also physical. So it was all these levels of emotion, physical, and then musical, and it felt very healing. It felt like I'm healing myself and I'm healing whoever is listening to this,
yeah.
with this music. And that's I think the shamanic kind of point of Icarus, and they're like that. They're songs they're designed to kind of heal you musically with that. So yeah, that was an interesting moment, and there were other moments, and it was pretty cool. And I told you about this other moment I had was I was thinking about like because I had again some memories and it was pretty cool, like very early memories from my childhood, and I thought, oh, it's so funny because all of this is just really because I remember like my parents, and I was like, this is the only place I can see them now that vividly, and that exactly like they were in my memories, in my mind, and that is also going to go away because your mind deteriorates and one day you die and it's over, and the storage rots away, and nothing lasts forever. But the point is not to get all wound up in chasing these memories because they're in the past anyway. The point is that that's only one function of your brain to store these moments. The other function is to create them, to create new ones, is to have your own experiences that then are being stored in your own memory and in the people around you, because they witness these nice moments. Like, I don't know, you go out with friends, you have family, you have, beautiful moments in your life, and they become these new memories that replace some of the old memories that you forget because they were a long time ago, or time goes by and you forget things, so you replace them with these new memories. So that was like the cycle of life that I thought about for a second. Then I looked at the sky, it was pretty cool, and I thought like, oh man, it looks like a painting. Like I saw these layers of color because it was getting like already like the sun was kind of setting, and it was pretty cool. So yeah, in general, it was shorter. As a smaller experience, it was not as like the visuals were not flooding and like, and I'm gone. It was more like I almost had to kind of look for them. Like I had to close my eyes and look for them. I mean, there was a little bit of open-eyed visuals too, but more like waving and patterns, but not as strong as it normally is. But nevertheless, it was a really nice, much shorter, much milder experience. But just to point to the fact that even smaller experiences can be very profound, and especially for someone who hasn't done it before, maybe it's not a bad idea to start with a smaller amount, uh, and it's just as nice. So yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, sounds like it. I like Ivo. He asks what's our favorite comedians.
Hmm. Well, who are your favorite comedians, Devtra?
Uh, I don't know. Right now, the things I watch now are H3H3, their podcast, and I always like them, like their stuff. Oh, and Chris D'Elia, his
But would
pod.
you would you call H3H3 a comedian like this guy? I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. He
What
started.
what?
Well, that's how he started YouTube. He wasn't doing a podcast before. He was doing these viral videos. They were
Uh,
pretty funny actually. And now it's still comedy, but it's like more in a podcast context
yeah, yeah.
and commentaries, and it's still funny. And Chris D'Elia and Bill Burr. Also, I also follow his. That's I guess podcast only. But he talks too much about when starts just talking for so long about football that I don't care at all because he's a fan and just forever commenting on some games. I don't care. Yeah,
Mm.
also, yeah, as far as stand up, Joe Rogan blew my mind. I didn't know he was that good in stand up. I like also with everything else
Yeah,
he does
here's the
apparently.
thing about him. Like in this case, that's the thing. I was talking about Debbie about that too. That I don't know, man, but for me personally, I don't like his stand-up.
Really,
I don't think it's
I can tell he wrote maybe all of it while he was high because his ideas are so weird,
yeah. The thing about him, like
and he always has some
I love him so much, but the thing is, and he really identifies. If you listen to his podcast, you know that more than anything, he identifies as a comedian, and he himself is always most fondly talking about the Laugh Factory and hanging out with the comics, and he was doing this. He was 19, and about Mincy Shore, and the owner of the Laughing Factory and the other comedy store, sorry, and all these stories and how big he grew up in that community, and he always wanted to do that, and that's really who he really wants to be in his core. And when he goes down, he's like, I was a good comedian. And everything else, the podcast and the sports and the UFC stuff and everything else is kind of secondary. At least that's the way I understand
The
it.
thing is,
Uh,
it's not. Now that I think of it, also like Louis C.K. I think he's similar to Louis C.K. in his ideas and commentary about. I don't know. He always has some point. It's not just some dumb story. Or
right,
he
right. But to get to my
has
point, like
interesting
I
thought. Yeah.
I don't agree with him in the sense that I know that he loves it the most. And he's the most maybe proud of that, but I personally think that
Mm.
that's the weakest point of all of these things that he does. I really think
Have you
that.
seen his specials?
Yeah, I've seen a
Uh,
couple,
have you seen
and
the
and
last one?
I
The
think so. I think I see. I've seen the Netflix one. I think
Strange Times.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
And it's just not. It's just like it's mediocre to me. It's like I don't see it as mind blowing as these guys when like Bill Burr drops something or Louis C.K. They're on a whole nother level to me. or Dave Chappelle, they're completely another level.
Things, yeah,
Uh,
Dave Chappelle, I found him one of the worst one. I mean, at least for me, it's like his jokes. They're always kind of they feel old, like some old like all very old school, you know.
right.
And he's always like delivering in a way it's not that he like expects you to laugh in some, and people laugh when you're there. I guess when his voice is actually very nice. like he's like this grandfather that tells you this
Right.
story about life or whatever. Anyway, the thing is, what I noticed now that I think about it, it's not like when I watch some stand-up comedy that I really like, I'm like constantly like, oh my god, like laughing like crazy. The thing that I mostly appreciate now, it's like this, exactly this point of view about stuff.
Oh,
You know,
really? Okay.
like for example, one of these that like now, if I have to think about the top of my head, like one of Rogan's, like he made a very nice point about how women are always like they're complaining about, oh, we don't get appreciated, we don't have that much big part in the society, whatever. And he's like, oh, what about giving birth to children? Like that's the
Right.
biggest miracle. Like what the fuck do you mean no one else can do that? And it's incredible. It's like magic or whatever.
Right.
And
But
his
that's a,
other
that's a
his other his
two-edged.
other his other like, big point also about this talk, so they're like, well, men are taking all these professions, they're like doing all this stuff, and he said like, well, don't look at me, I can't do all this stuff either. It's not me as a man, it's some other men. Like there are like several of them that are crazy good at some stuff, but that's not men. Men are, that we can't do much on general. It's like these outliers that apparently are men also, for some
Right.
reason. Yeah, well,
But
I think there are like some statistics, like Jordan Peterson also talks about these things, that on average we're similar, like men and women, but the outliers, like the way where it is distributed, like men are on the like the borders, like we achieve much more. The best men are much better than the average man or whatever.
yeah.
Or whatever, like
Yeah.
these things are like,
The thing about opinion is kind of double-edged sword, in my opinion, when it comes to stand-up. And I'll tell you why. Because first of all, these guys that you're talking about, um, like Dave Chappelle has also this opinion thing, right? Especially in the last few specials. He's telling a story and he doesn't really care that much anymore about like getting to the
I think so.
laugh.
Also,
He cares about the point,
like
you know.
the density of his jokes is very small. Like because the stories are so long, like the punchline is in the end, and it's like he tells like five things the whole one
Right.
hour.
But what I'm trying to say is that this is something like everyone has an opinion, and even a comedian that's starting right now and it's his first bit, he has an opinion, but he doesn't have the confidence to express it because he's like, okay, I need to tell jokes and make people laugh, and these guys have the luxury to be able to express it because they're famous for also for their opinions. Joe Rogan people listen to the podcast, so they're like, oh, this guy has interesting thoughts, and he
Yeah,
he understands that, and he now can do it, and maybe he wasn't able to do it if you watch his early stand-ups that were not like that. And it's not a progression of the quality of comedy, it's just the quality of his character also as a
yeah.
person. It's like, I saw this many years ago. The first person I remember feeling that about was this what was this guy, this fat comedian, Iglesias, I forgot his name. uh, he had like a stand-up, like I watched like a couple of specials, and the last one I saw was just um all about like
Oh, you mean
his.
Gabriel Iglesias?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh my God,
And it
this
was,
guy is so annoying to me. I don't know.
yeah, and yeah, I'm not a fan either. But I watched these like in a progression, and by the end, it was just like these family stories, and because people already liked him, they know him, and they care about it. But if you don't know the person as a personality, if you see him just as a comedian, no one gives a fuck about your opinion. So there's only a
Yeah,
particular number of people that you would actually care about. And those are like podcast people. Those are people that've been in the business for very, very long. So there's specific people that can do this, not because they're really good, but because they can, because people will listen to anything, basically, they say. And for them, it's interesting because they're like, oh, finally I can tell a normal story and be myself and not just go for the laugh all the time. But nevertheless, I respect people like Bill Burr. He doesn't rely on that yet. He's still fucking packing this fucking full of jokes. He's still very over delivering. Louis C.K. is also still very much in the fucking grind, and I respect that. And the other thing is, there's also other options. It's not just okay, just do the laugh like a robot, do jokes, or do opinions and stories and be interesting, not funny, but interesting and entertaining. But there's also other options, like for example, being artistic, and that would be someone like Bo Burnham. Bo Burnham. What was his last name?
I think
Bo
Burnham.
Burnham, I think.
Burnham, yeah.
What is it?
Bob Burnham. Yeah.
Bo Burnham, yeah. So Bo Burnham, he started very young. He started actually with YouTubers like he was 14 or 15, and then he started doing stand up at the same age. And he was prolific. He was doing special after special, writing tremendous amount of material and songs and bits. And then, so he eventually he sort of graduated to that level much younger. So he's roughly around our age. And when he was like in his like I don't know 28, 29, he did his last special, and he said, "That's it. I quit. I'm done with this. I've done this for 15 years." And he moved on to writing for Broadway and for films, and he made a film and he wrote some plays and he writes for other people. He's not on the stage anymore, but his last show was an artistic fucking thing. So again, he was like, I don't care about the jokes anymore. Just like punch, 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 punch line. It was like, I want to show you this nice. I want to give you this nice evening of theater because you're here and sitting in the theater and listening to me, and I want to give you this nice kind of like going back to these old shows where the stand-up originated, and it's like these vaudeville shows and these variety programs where people would be like doing a little music, a little act, a little talking, a little this and that, and he did that, and it was beautiful. It was amazing. It wasn't like the whole time laughing. He even made fun of it. He was like, at the end, he ends up with this song, and he's playing it, and it's like, I hope that you laughed, or if you didn't, uh, you exhaled loudly through your nose, or something like this. He was trying to make the point that it's not all about like just laughing out loud,
Yeah.
but also just having a smile on your face and thinking, that was really nice. And but again, to have that confidence to be able to fill a room, sell the tickets, and do another one of those, you have to be at that point where you have that following, where these people are going to listen to you no matter what. So you either have a show, a podcast, a TV show, or something else that people know you from. And that's what the other people do. Like if you ever see, like Nick Offerman does these tours. Like I don't know, Mike Tyson has done one man shows.
Mike Tyson.
All of these people who are not legit stand up comics, but are doing one night like doing stand up acts. They're doing that. They're writing a thing which incorporates stories, which some of it is funny, some of it's sad, some of it's artistic, and I think that's what you're trying to say when like Rogan is doing these sharing his opinion. To me, that's cool, and I care about that, and I'm interested to hear them out. But I don't think it's on the same level as these guys who are just legit stand-up fucking gods, and they're fucking killing it. And the thing is he's not doing that just because. It, I mean, he's doing that because also I think he's not able to deliver as much as these guys are, like Bill Burr and.
But the thing is, still, I think even on Joe Rogan, everyone is laughing. You know,
Yeah.
that's why
No,
what he
I mean,
feeds
that's
on.
that's not like a real thing. Like I mean, if people are laughing, you can't judge. I don't think you can. I mean, listen, when I look at something, whether there's laughter or not, I'm not influenced by that anymore. Like I
Yeah,
listen
yeah, me
I
too.
and I try to compare because it's an editing job. They do a tour, they do like 100 shows, and they pick the best.
No,
With
no,
like
not exactly because yeah. I guess yeah, they pick.
yeah, and I mean they put sound on the audience. You
No,
hear
but you can see it in the comedian when he's like he gets this boost from the laughter. You can see it when he gets it, and he like
No, no, I mean,
continues improvising and.
when it comes to audience work, Joe Rogan is really good. So I've seen some videos. So here's an interesting thing. I actually seen some YouTube videos where he's reacting to hecklers and stuff like that in the Laugh Factory and other places in the store, where he's actually much funnier than in his specials, in my opinion, because you can tell that's a gift that you develop over many 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 years of just like just being at the store every night and reacting to the audience, and that's something that happens on the spot at the moment when this person said that, and you're fast and you
Yeah.
boom and you do it, and that's cool, that's fucking great. But the stuff that he writes, when he's floating in his tank, and when he's smoking weed and writing these stuff, and it's the seventh special or whatever. That stuff I don't think is on the level of the written stuff that other people write. But that stuff when he's reacting on the spot, that is the years of experience are there. So that is something that he fucking kills. But the stuff that he writes, I don't think it's I mean, again, it's a subjective thing, like you say. Like you don't like Dave Chappelle. I think he's
Yeah.
genius. It's everyone has a preference. So I'm saying this is just my opinion. But I think that he's better at other things than that.
So your answer is Bob Burnham, Dave Chappelle, and Bill Burr.
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean,
and Louis C.K.
I mean, a lot of people. Like my biggest idol always was Robin Williams. I've always loved like Don Rickles. But I mean, when it comes to comedy inspiration, I'm not just looking at the stand-up guys, but also at anything. Like I don't know, Howard Stern and his bits. Like that's an interesting thing because if you want to learn from the best, you shouldn't just look for the obvious stuff or the most viewed stuff or the things. You should kind of try to push yourself to find stuff on your own. And there's all kinds of very weird things that you can find if you dig a little deeper. They're fucking hilarious. Like there was this guy there's this radio guy. Um, Let me fucking find it. Phil. Um, his name is. Uh,
Uh,
Phil Hendry. Phil Hendry Hendrie. Phil Hendry is a fucking genius comedian. But very few people know about him. All the comics know him. Like he's one of those guys that is not very commercially famous, but like whoever is in the business knows him. So there's like, there's people there that have influenced me and I admire a lot who few people know about. But you know, there's also more of the commercial people. So it's a combination of many things. But I mean, I haven't spent much time like watching religiously stuff.
yeah, I mean, if it's not just stand up, I would say maybe my one of my top three, or maybe even one, was Filthy Frank. He was amazing. And also the thing is, now I really like his music, like his last two songs. Even and the last one, Run, was wow. The first time I heard it was, I listened to it. I still listen to it. It's what the fuck, and I wonder like how the hell does this happen? How is this guy affecting me on so many levels? But I guess
Yeah, man.
just weird.
That's a good point. Like you should. I think that's a very very good way to be better at whatever you're doing. Is not just look at the immediate competition, but try to find like something to combine. I think great art is also like a combination of things that are not usually combined, Like you come up with something amazing if you take
Mm.
that thing from the musical world and that thing from the comedy world and that thing from whatever, you combine them all and then you're like, wow, see, that is a little more original than most things. I think that kind of sharing is very important and reaching to different libraries.
Yeah, just be yourself. Just do integrate everything that is you in whatever context you're putting it, and be real and true to your
Yeah,
feelings
that's a very interesting
about.
kind of philosophical thought because I mentioned this earlier. I watched this Neil Gaiman masterclass, and he talked about this. Like when it comes to writing, for which is of course part of everything, writing a song, writing a stand-up special, writing a book. Everyone says you have to be honest, right? Like you're saying, you have to be yourself. Only when you're honest, it's really good. That's where it's meaningful. But when you write something that's obviously it's a work of fiction, right? Whether you're painting a painting of something that never existed, or a movie about made up characters, or a book about made up characters, it's a work of fiction. There has never been anything like that. But the same rule applies. You have to be
Yeah.
honest, right? So it's so funny. It's in a sense you're lying, but you're lying in the most honest way possible. When you're calling this guy whatever his name is, actually you're describing an aspect of yourself, and that other character is your best friend, and that other thing happened to.
Well, fiction. The fiction part is always some rules that you uh, establish, and then you just build this universe on top of them. I mean, it can be the same universe as ours, but using these different rules.
Right.
You know? So it can still be real in that sense.
Yeah. Now I started editing my 11th story, so I'm gonna finish it soon. This one is interesting. So the 11th story is gonna be.
So everyone can read those stories, right?
No,
You
so
have put
you
them.
can't, of course.
No, no, not this one, but
No. So you can read the first five there on the website. The other
well, why
five,
don't you put the
the
rest?
other five are still in circulation because I'm still sending them out, and all of these magazines they respond so late. Like some of them are months later. So like they have like 3, 4 months, sometimes 6 months to respond. So you submit it
But
and you just
about
wait.
this responding, I listened to. Actually, I also read his book, and maybe I read it there and I forgot. But this guy, I mean, he's Devin Townsend, so he also had these same struggles. I mean,
Who is
as
it?
you, it's this artist, musical artist, that's one of my favorite. Devin Townsend is his name.
Okay.
So, the thing is, he also like was saying the way he started, he had these two albums already. He recorded them or whatever, like demos, and he sent them to some, as you like, you send your stories to some publisher, but he sent them to some labels, like one of the albums, and he got rejected all the time. And he actually got a response at some point, and they told him, well, yeah, this is great. Actually, yeah, first they accepted it. They're like, okay, we'll do it. We'll release it. Then 2 weeks later, they're like, oh, I'm sorry, we played it actually to the main guy, like the what was the word?
Yo.
The director, or whatever.
Okay.
He was like, he heard it, was like, oh, well, actually, I'm not releasing that. It's a bit too weird. Like, we don't have that here. And they responded like, yeah, we have this type of negative band. Can you do something like that? And he responded like, oh yeah, of course, yeah. Actually, I have this this other album. I can send it to you too. Like, yeah, sure, send it. And he sent them this photo of his asshole. So the thing in the end, he succeeded. He was always true to himself. He didn't change anything at all. Actually, one of the rejections was, again, like, everything was great, but can you actually change this line? Because the director was some Catholic, and he didn't like some line that he wasn't very religious or whatever, like that there is no hope for everyone or something like that.
Yeah.
He was like, no, I can't. Just for this line,
Right.
on the whole album.
Yeah.
And now he's pretty big. Actually, now recently, yeah, that was a bit weird. He because of the corona, he was like, some tour got cancelled that he lost, because he's always like investing all his money in some tours. Like, he lost like $100,000 or something, and he made this crowdfund page to save some of this. So that some people donate. Actually, I donated, but it was like so much money. Like, what the fuck, man? But I think he collected like 60 or 70,000 just
Wow.
from people.
Nice.
And I donated like 50 or 70. I don't know.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, so some of them, the first few are available on the website. The others I haven't. My plan is when I get enough rejections, I will upload them anyway. But I don't want to upload them yet because they don't like that. Like if they Google a story and
Oh.
they see it, they're like, why should we publish it if you already published it? Which is
Mhm.
the whole point. Like if you want to publish it yourself, do it. Don't bother us. Don't make us read something that. So they all want exclusivity. That's the point. Like the rights to publish something
Mhm.
is the whole thing. So anyway, but the point is, so this one, like the last one I wrote, the one that I sent you the other day, is kind of loosely inspired by you and the virus and this conversation we had, which I'm curious to see what you think about the story. So to tell the people, Ibo in particular, who I hope is still listening. So we had a
Yeah,
conversation.
easy.
We had a conversation with you, and you said, you sent me this photo of Curb Your Coronavirus, where this lady is reading this booklet about the virus, and she's like, now you should be super careful and not to touch your face and not to touch your eyes and don't, whatever. And then she turns the page and she licks her finger and turns the page. And they play the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme. And that was super funny, and it got kind of viral around the virus. And I was like, and then you said, oh man, imagine all these fucking books when we were kids in the library, all these old books that like a million people read, if I had to lick every page. So, and then I took that and I was like, okay, let me see what happens. And so I wrote this story. So I send that to you, and let's see what do you think. And then the next one was kind of inspired by a different conversation I had with Debbie. So this conversation, so in this story that I sent you, the character is called Stefanos. So I kind of loosely modeled it after you. And the next story, the character is called David after Devi because Devi is so weird that even in my weird stories, it's too weird for my story. So I had to make it into a normal name. So I call it David. So in this story, there's a guy. So the conversation first. So the conversation I have with Devi was, he got kind of hooked up into watches a little bit. I've been talking about watches for a long time, and he finally started ordering some watches, and now he has a couple watches, and he tells me, you know what, I ordered a couple of watch straps, uh, just to be able to replace watch straps.
Hmm.
So I don't have to order a million watches. I can just order a couple of cheap straps, and I can replace them depending on what I'm wearing during the day. So I said, well, that's cool, man. And but then I'm like, but it's so much work. Like, how often do you replace it? And he's like, I'm almost every day I'm replacing them. And I'm like, oh man, come on! Like, what are you doing? Like every day you're spending so much time on replacing the strap. Then what's next? Are you going to be replacing your shoelaces and the buttons in your shirts and what else are you gonna like? Why don't you just build this dummy, this mannequin in your room of like Devi, and just put like all the replacement parts, and then you pick them from that dummy, and then what if that dummy
I think you sent me the conversation.
yeah, yeah.
It's
What if that dummy becomes like more real than you, and Toby likes to play with him more because he has more straps, and then people like him more, and then you're kind of lost, and So from that conversation, which Devi concluded by saying, "Oh, there you go, you have another story," which is how he often responds to me after listening to my whatever
stream of consciousness.
into whatever weirdness I go to. And I say, yeah, why not? Why not? So so I wrote this whole thing, based on that, and so it's a story about it's a story about this guy David who does exactly that. He builds a dummy of himself, who becomes more and more real as the story goes on, and then kind of replaces him. It's this. It's not an original story in a sense. It's been done so many times in different varieties, but then I do some, I think, more unusual twists with it later on. So maybe let's see if this one is nice, and maybe you tell me if you read that too. So yeah, man. I mean,
I think I'm at the third one. I have to catch up with it. Actually, I really like the third one's premise and
what was the third one?
this detective that's
Oh yeah.
amputated and
Did you read it? Did you finish it or?
yeah, I finished it. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Well, this one was very different because this one was completely driven by the character, which is unusual for me because I usually come up with the idea and then build the characters around it. But in this case, the whole idea was the character, and so the story is kind of not so solid in my opinion. But so anyway, this was called. This one is on the website, so people can read it, and I can tell just the pitch so I don't spoil it for people. But it's called Detective Spencer, and the idea is that one day I was basically high as fuck as usual, and in Malta, and me and Luigi took our guitars and went to the beach, and we're smoking a joint and we're playing by the beach. And as we're going there, I start thinking, and I say, you know what, like because when you get high, your senses are also kind of heightened, and I'm thinking, how like when someone is like blind, like his sense of hearing is all of a sudden heightened because like the senses that you're lacking, the other senses are overcompensating or whatever. And then I thought, but what if you had someone who like had no senses, like, and I started removing senses, at the end leaving just one sense that would be like over dominating all the other senses. So I was like, what if there's a guy who's born blind, deaf, with no sense of smell and no arms and legs, so no touch. So the only thing he has is his tongue, he can taste things with his tongue, but he can fucking taste everything. Like this guy can fucking like put his tongue out and lick the wind, and he can tell you what the weather is going to be like. Everything. So what if this guy, in addition to everything, is also a detective, and he's solving crimes using his gifts. So that was the premise of the idea, and the premise of the story, and then everything else was based on that, and he had some mystery to solve.
You send that also to people, to publishers.
Yeah, I sent it to a Benny place.
Fucking hell!
Everyone
I would publish it.
But the thing
Okay.
about it is like, because it's also like kind of a sensitive topic, because to me it's funny and nice and nothing disrespectful, but you can imagine in
Yeah, probably.
fucking 2020 everyone's like, oh, but it's people with disabilities and you making fun of that, which of course I'm not. This is not about people with disabilities, but you can understand how, and this is not something that they've told me. It's just something that I kind of
Assume.
feel like. And
Yeah.
the other one, the next one is actually interesting. The next one you might like more. It's much more kind
Well,
of.
actually, yeah. I mean, I also read this one where you were also high or whatever, where you like go through 10 different characters and with the theme of isolation or whatever.
Oh yeah.
This stream.
That was one is a little more weird. Yeah, this one I don't even know really what to think about it. I was just experimenting with it, to be honest.
Yeah,
The
to
fake
me
teeth.
it's too weird.
I know.
Yeah.
I even read it. I reread it yesterday, just thinking about it, and I was like,
No, but the idea is so nice. It's an original idea. I mean, I haven't read anything like that where, with this idea, where it just goes with whatever happens now and continues to some other character in that situation there, like
Yeah.
in
but
another
it repeats
domain.
repeats the motif.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I thought no, it was like a dream. Like in
Yeah.
a dream, you have things that are repeating, but they're changing.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
You
I
talk
have
to
to
one
go-
person, all of a
go-
sudden that person is someone else, and
I have to leave for like 1 minute to get.
all right.
my
So I can tell in the
food.
meantime the story real quick.
Yeah.
So this that we're talking about now is one that Steph read. It's called Fake Teeth, and that story that's a weird one. So it's more experimental because the narrative is not like he's talking to someone. So anyway, so in this story, I have like 4 different sub stories. And the story starts with one thing, and then it goes to another miniverse, and then another miniverse, and then another miniverse. And it starts very normal, but it ends up completely crazy. It starts with a very normal situation that was actually also inspired by real events. And the situation is, imagine a boy meets a girl, and the boy has a very religious big family, and the girl has fake tits. She has fake boobies. And the boy loves the girl, and the girl loves the boy, and they're together. And the boy decides, you know what, I'm going to introduce her to my family. But what am I going to do now? They're going to look at her, they're going to judge her, they're going to talk between each other, like talk to me or not talk to me, and lose energy on the whole thing, what to think about the boobies, what to think about these implants. So he decides, I'm going to just tell them in advance. I'm going to tell them, put them in a room and tell them, listen, guys, yes, she has implants, but that's normal. I love her. She's great. So be normal. Don't fuck it up for me. So he does that. He puts the family together. He tells them the situation, and the girl comes in and whatever. And so it starts with that premise, but then it starts escalating. So now everyone is talking about these boobies in this small village where the family is living, and they tell the kids talk about it in school, and teachers talk about it, and priests talk about it during the sermon on Sunday, and it spills over, and it gets to the next level, and now people are writing books about it. They make a show about it, and the show is, and now all of a sudden we're in this show, and in the show there's other characters and there are other things happening, and but it's the same kind of idea. Again, a girl who gets fake breasts, and then she gets these fake breasts, and now she's really happy, and now everything's great. So people start talking about her, and people start writing about her. Now they write a book about her, and then they write another book, which is the prequel to that book, and then we're in this prequel. Now I'm talking about what's happening in the prequel, and so on, and it's like, that idea of like these mini-verse. I don't know. It's weird, really, because I was not. I wanted to be consistent, not story-wise. Not the narrative is not consistent, but the motifs and emotions are, and they're still changing into like they're growing. They're becoming more obsessive, and it's like almost like when your mind is stuck in some idea which evolves into an unhealthy obsession. Like in this case, also the very real idea of altering yourself, becoming more fake in a sense, like with these boobies, to, I don't know, to please people, to please society, to be liked by people. And that fakeness can be an idea that it's so obsessive that it just transcends realities, gets to other universes, and So I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm trying to put too much value on something that's shit. But I mean, anyway, it was fun to write it. I was experimenting and trying different things. Um, who are you talking to? You were talking to someone.
Uh, what? No, really?
Yeah, you said
I
you were
was
talking to someone.
not talking. I want to get my food. Um, Anyway, so we have to like respond to Ivo because he's
Yes.
also losing his patience and mind. He asked like long ago, like
1 hour.
if like no long ago he asked, oh maybe 1 hour. Like I don't know how much you talked about your stories
Oh shit.
yourself. Anyway, he asked where do we live? I live in Sofia.
Yeah, I live in Barcelona, which is in Europe.
Yeah, but you're coming back
Yeah,
next week
I'm coming back next week to Sofia,
forever.
which is in Europe. I don't know if forever. We'll see.
I mean outside Barcelona forever at least.
Yeah.
And also he asked what do we think, or yeah, what do we think about the Eric Andre show?
It's great. We love it.
What can, what can we
What can you
say?
think about it? It makes you stop thinking. The whole idea of the
Yeah,
show is
exactly.
suspend your brain for a moment.
That's
Uh,
me. Sure.
it's a great.
Is it?
Listen, I fucking love it. But it's a thing of its own, and uh, yeah, it's fucking awesome. Like
Is it still happening? I
I don't
didn't
know.
know.
I don't think they've done something. I sent you
Like
this trailer.
I felt like in the last episode, like the last season when I was still following it, they kind of they started like I don't know, kind of it wear off this
Yeah.
type of. They were like pushing it too much to be
Well, that's the
random and
thing. Like,
crazy and
where can you possibly take that?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like after a while, it's just impossible to do anything with it.
And also now there's this movie coming out.
Yeah, but it's not related. It's a different project by the same guy. It's it's a prank kind of movie, like Jackass movies and this sort of stuff.
I don't trust that movie. Yeah, it looks. I don't know. It doesn't look that great. It looks alright.
Yeah, it's not gonna
I
be
have
great
to
for
see.
sure. It's not gonna
But
be mind-blowing.
I don't trust it yet that it's real. I mean, from the trailer.
No, I mean it's just like the Jackass movie. So like this, what was this Grandpa movie with Knoxville? That it has parts of it which are scripted, or like you
Ah.
mentioned Borat, it has parts of it where there is a story.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there's a
Things
story.
they're presented as real. Like,
Yeah,
this
and
is real.
all these people in the trailer and everything, they were real people. So there's hidden cameras. So they
Yeah,
try.
exactly. This part I was
Yeah.
skeptical about that part.
Well, you know how it is. Like some of these people are for real dumb people, and they're like, oh,
No, thing is when the audio and the angle and everything is
Yeah.
perfect and it's obviously like some big camera there in front of the guy and no one he doesn't even acknowledge it and like something's not weird, not right there. Oh yeah, I mean, then he says that the show is cancelled. Well, it makes sense.
uh,
Like, yeah,
this is Ibo saying that he's canceled.
yeah. We don't have any other commenters today.
Well, thank you. First of all, Ibo, thanks for staying with us, man. It's a lonely time, and we need as many friends as possible if we're about to do this revolution. But yeah, I mean, it was good. That's the sort of thing that it gets exhausted. Same thing with Between Two Ferns. It's a great concept, but you can't do it forever because after a while, it's a very simple shtick that you do
Yeah,
a few
yeah.
times and that's it. And that it's just otherwise it's just repetitive. It's the same thing over and over. Um,
Yeah, which is sad.
yeah. No, but it is. I mean, then you move to the next thing, like he's doing now this movie or whatever.
The thing is, I mean, now that I think of it, the problem with the show is exactly it's made for people who are, I would say, smarter. It's not part of this mainstream whatever media, and these people, these are exactly the kind of people that kind of get tired of things.
Yeah.
When it's the same. Because if you take like Friends, they can make 12,000 seasons, and everyone will continue watching the same thing
Yeah.
because it applies to this sheep herd of mentality. That's the thing they like.
Right, yeah,
and
and also because
they can watch it forever.
because in a sense it's anti-comedy. It's like it's making a mockery out of these shows.
Yeah.
And it's if you are imitating something, even to like make a poor imitation of it, which this is achieving, right? Then also you can go forever, because if you do the original thing, you can go forever. But if you do the mock version of it, you get tired of it faster for
Yeah.
some reason, psychologically probably faster than like if you're I don't know. For example, I was submitting some of the stories, and there's this one magazine where they only accept Lovecraftian like fan fiction, like fiction which is in the Lovecraft universe.
Mm, yeah.
Apparently, there's such thing, you know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's not exactly something by itself, but it's feeding of something
So
else.
I imagine like this is a great thing if you read one or two of these, but if you have to read 100 of these, you get fucking bored as fuck because it's like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Like you know, fan fiction is something like that. You know, it's stupid. It's cool for 5 seconds and then it gets
Yeah.
because
Or fan or
our minds need to be stimulated by something that's novel, that seems completely new, and this is like the opposite, which is somehow even quicker, even faster. It exhausts us. You know, I don't know. Um, yeah.
uh, yeah. And now he's wants to just talk to us. He says he's lonely too, and
So tell us something about yourself, Ivo. Like where you're from. How do you know? How long have you been watching us? Tell us something.
and
Do you,
where is the other Ibo? Like this one is Grand,
yeah. Where's the small Ivo or whatever?
the mediocre one, or
Explain the name. Can you explain the name? What is this Ivo Grant? Where is this coming from?
yeah. While the lag catches up with him, because I believe, I'm pretty sure there is a lag because of their processing everything.
Yeah.
It's not that they can't do it, but they want to make sure that we're not doing some weird shit on the
We're
live
not
now.
assassinating.
Sheep and cats. And there is blood everywhere. I wonder if our actually how far did our herbal infused podcast go? That's actually blocked now everywhere because of the music. Like, do you think it got streamed?
I don't know.
I,
Well, we know
and
that
it's
you watched it, right? Oh, you watched it.
well, like, but all of it didn't.
Yeah, yeah.
Ah, that's nice. So we can still play music. It
You
just
said
won't
it was
go in.
fucking epic. It was. I downloaded it just to have it preserved.
Oh yeah, I also downloaded it. Actually, I did. I downloaded somewhere else.
It's great, man. It's the greatest.
We should upload it somewhere.
Yeah.
Somewhere. Or no. Oh yeah, I mean you said no. Okay, maybe no. Yeah, let it be there.
Man, we're gonna do a new version of it when I come back.
Oh yeah, just we have
We're
to
gonna redo it.
seriously. We shouldn't play music.
Yeah.
Like we have to stick
But
to
you know
that.
what? Yeah, I'm gonna set up my mic because I can't leave, right? So I'm gonna be at Devis. I'm gonna set up my mic, and if you want,
Oh,
you can
oh,
come
yeah.
over. I mean, if you don't need to bring your shit, but if you
Oh,
can
yeah.
bring it, if
Oh,
you're
yeah,
with a
we
car,
can do that.
and we can record
No.
one in Devis' place, or wait for 2 weeks until I'm out, and then I can come to your place, and whatever works for you.
Yeah. We have to see how they check on you.
Yeah.
Maybe they come to your place and just ring the bell and.
Yeah, they do supposedly. That's
Uh-huh. Yeah, I guess there's no other way. That's the way.
like
to do it.
Devi said that he had a friend in Beauregard, the spirit of Beauregard, who lived in the UK or something and came back, and they checked on him 5 times in 2 weeks.
Wow.
But
Damn.
maybe
Well, that's what that's.
it's a smaller town or so, I don't know.
But that's great. It's very nice that they do that.
Yeah.
Like that's the way to do it.
Especially
And I'm surprised actually
smoke
that
weed all
they're.
day. It's a great thing for them to.
No, yeah, I'm surprised that they're taking it so serious. Like so many things here are
No,
so
that's the
broken.
thing. That the only people who are actually doing something are the cops now, because they're like,
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
like riding all the time. Like cops are passing by my window fucking 24 times.
They finally have work. So Ivo says he's from Bulgaria, and the other one tried to kill himself, but he was dead.
Yeah.
Whatever that means.
This guy's
Maybe
next
he
level. I
was-
think Ibo Grant is like, that's why he's Grant, because he's on another level of consciousness.
He evolved like a Pokemon.
Oh yeah, maybe
Should we
that's
talk about
the
something?
last form of Ibo is Ibo Grant. Do you have?
Should we talk about something else?
Yeah, did we write something? Did you write something from before that we missed? You can open. Didn't we have
Yes.
like an old file? Maybe we can open the old file. It might be something, some reference from 2015 that we,
Uh,
you know.
I was wondering what's happening with Facebook because I don't have now, but I was thinking about it. I don't have Facebook
Yeah.
now, like the last 1 month at least.
Yeah.
I'm not sure now, but still, I can kind of, if I think about it, I can imagine I have it. I can tell what it's on there right now.
Right. And
I can make a simulation in my mind. I'm sure there's like the big post that says, "Fuck this Corona, it's fucking bullshit." Of course, then there's the response, and there was like, "You're a fucking retard. Of course, we have to be inside." Then this other long post, like after some other post, some guy explains like that it's good to be in. That's the way we should do. Then some respond under it that he's a retard. And I'm sure there's like all of this. There's like the photo in the people from Sofia group that has this one guy in the center, and he's lonely or whatever, sitting on a bench, and there's this cop checking him, or or this bird flying, like there's some bird and the whole square is empty. Like I'm not sure what is there that I don't expect at this point. That can say, "Oh, thank God I
so I
have it."
opened the old podcast topics from the old time that we did it, and I see one of the things that I think you wrote that. It's like, how about Herg and the Hergism epidemic? A gazillion mile stare, soul crushing settlements, controlling bitches, social and socialism pressure. Social and socialism pressure.
I think we talked
We've
about
talked
this.
about this, but I'm not. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember.
So we have a friend who, yeah, he has this.
Actually, this has so evolved now. It's progressed.
Man, it's progressing, man. This guy is crushed, but new life comes out of it. You know what I mean? Like he saw like this is maybe what the stare is. When you see that stare, you know that the guy's. I'm done, so I better reproduce, and I.
Yeah, the
I can
stare
now.
is the 100-yard stare. It's a term used for people that have lived through war, and they have this trauma. So they just look at nothing and think about the war. Like their focus is lost. They don't focus on anything nearby. They just look in the distance, even if there is no distance.
Right.
They just snap, like they turn off their eyes or whatever.
Yeah.
Often. So that's why we're referring, because when you go into this relationship that was so desperate to have, that in the end you were like, okay, this is the one now, and you can tell that you're not happy by the photos.
Yeah. He should be like,
And then-
these witness protection guys where they change the voice and they cover the eyes. Like celebrities make photos with the babies and they put like a black piece of paper. So he should be like this on the photo so people can't tell his real emotions.
I don't think people can tell. Can we tell? I think it's only people that have seen him before can tell. They know how he looks.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, yeah.
It's weird.
So I can tell.
Actually, I see that now a lot when I think about it. I mean, not now, but when I used to have Facebook and scroll and look at people's photos, you can really tell about some people that they post like they're smiling, but there's something off there, And it's always in the eyes. You can see that they're not really smiling on the inside. It's like, damn, I wonder what's happening there.
Yeah.
And why would you post that also? So Ibo,
Yeah.
apparently his name is Ibish.
Ibish.
Ibish. Ibish.
Ibish.
I thought it was like from Ib.
Yeah.
The Ib. No, it's actually
Ibish. Ibish is
Ibish.
there's a Polish guy who was a famous Polish presenter called
nice.
Ibish, but I'm not sure. No, but it was his last name. It's a last name. I know it as a last name. I've never heard of someone with the first name Ibish. But it's not a Polish. I think
so
it's.
he also called us boomers because we're using Skype, which is true. We are boomers, not because we're using Skype, but also that. And how did he know we're using Skype? And also Georgi Georgiev is here from that time when people had conversations on our podcast.
Oh, nice.
He's back. Maybe he expects some growth, but
Yeah, you know what? We should do like a fucking podcastathon. Like we start a podcast and we let it like fucking on for hours, and we walk around and take showers and whatever the fuck we do, go to bed and it's on the whole time. It's streaming and then
sure.
it's like, yeah, what's up? Are you still alive? Yeah, and we'll keep going. What was I looking? Ah, you mentioned Facebook, so I was like, I opened it up to see what I have on my Facebook, and it's the same thing, like what you're saying, like you can predict it, like an algorithm, exactly what it's on. So I'm looking at these. Oh Jesus, hold on, this is sad. Let me
Yeah,
see.
he says it's a Turkish name, so maybe he's from Turkey or not.
Okay, nice. Then you're okay. There's some pretentious post. There's someone just planted
Oh,
tomatoes.
probably now I will assume there are many people cooking stuff, like cooking potatoes. You know, it's a miracle.
Hmm.
Rice. Look at the thing I cooked. uh, I don't know, and there I have this several guys that are like always they have this one line joke about everything, and it's always terrible. That's one thing I'm missing
Yeah.
from there. They always like have this need to comment on like with the joke that they think it's, and it's not even funny to anyone. They don't. I don't know. It's not like they get likes or anything. It's
Man, I'm because I've unsubscribed from so many people. It's like half of the shit I see now is just ads. This fucking some
oh yeah,
stupid shit, and like
God.
half of it is not even real people. It's just fucking stupid ads.
But this will get progressively bad no matter what you do. You know, they're just trying like they're step by step. I remember when I saw the first ad on YouTube, like it was 1 or 2 seconds, and I was like, all right, that's it's on. Like in 2 years, there'll be like
Mm.
these long ads that will be like several ads. They'll be like everywhere in the middle, and now it's that, and it will get worse.
And everything. You see, I'm just fucking scrolling down, and everything is just fucking people reposting and different links to videos and stuff. It's like I can see that shit on YouTube. Why do I have to like the same content everywhere? You know, you go on Google, it's there, and you go on YouTube, it's
Yeah.
there, and it's Facebook is there, and everything is the same. And it's just
The
cut
thing is,
differently.
the best part about Facebook was, at least for me, was the events, and now there are no even events. Like, why would you be there? But I guess what else is there?
And then there's
Instagram.
like someone posts something, and then the next day someone else, and then it's just the same thing has to be posted by everyone, and then 6 months later they do this whole cycle again. It's the same content just endlessly recut, and someone just put a new title and new soundtrack behind it, and then again people start posting and the same shit again. Um,
So I guess we are boomers. Yeah, do you feel different now after, when you we both turned 30 in a 5 day span?
in a 5 day span, what? Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, you turned 30, then 5 days later I turned
that's true.
30.
Well, I mean, I feel dumber than ever, I feel unaccomplished and stupid. No, I mean, I'm making the thing is like, there's a couple of things I discover that it's like, first of all, I don't know if I was lied to or I just had this illusion formed by myself, thinking that, oh, when you grow up, you get to that one point that things just magically make sense. And it's like you figure it out and you make it. That word making it, like, right, reaching a point where there's no such thing. So the first thing that you realize when you grow up is like life is just a process and it keeps going forever. And the same thing, whatever you're feeling now, imagine it in 10 years and 20 years and the same thing. And you've accumulated other things, objects and things and maybe it manifests itself in a different way, but it's the same thing, the same problems, the same fucking insecurities, the same issues, because we're ultimately the same people. And uh, you know, that's one thing that I learned that it's like it doesn't matter by now, and the other thing
Well,
is,
it's no, it shouldn't be the same. At least some progression should be there, you know.
well, there is a progression, but it's like, it's like in the Witcher, like when you were talking about, you beat the fucking frog with a stick, and then you beat a frog level 50 with a stick level 50, it's sort of like
Yeah.
that. And now you have more frogs and you have different colors of frogs and different sticks, but it's the same kind of thing. It's in the sense that there's no making it. Like as soon as you reach that place when you thought that's it, then you see 10 other
The
places.
thing is, at least the anxiety should lower,
Oh yeah,
in the sense of
oh yeah.
in the sense
In
of you
that
have
sense, for
less
sure. I'm
Things
not
you have less time left, so you don't have to worry about all of that time. We have to worry about like 10 years now. Afterwards, we're old and dying.
Yeah, I mean, in
Uh,
that sense, it's true. Like, I don't have the. I'm in general happier than I used to be 10 years ago or 5 years ago, even. Much more at peace
yeah,
with myself. Like, it's cool. And yeah, and you value things like health and yeah, you got to be smart about life. There's certain things that you can do, but you can't do them too much because then you lose it.
and also that I don't waste that much time. I guess I do waste it, but in a different way. But not in that bad of a way. Like getting wasted, literally. Like I mean, just
Yeah.
getting wasted.
Well, I'm currently
Destroying.
wasting time, but maybe because of the situation now, and maybe if I figure it out, then I won't be wasting as much after a few months, I hope. But I mean, that's also, and the other thing is also it's waves and stages, and seasons. Like you have a summer of your life, you have an autumn of your life, but then it's not just like the one summer of your life. It could come and like you can have that moment, and then 5 years from now, oh shit, again, I thought that was over, but then boom, it comes again. It's like these. Some of it, it's almost some of it is almost stupid. Like when you see like older people, like in these romantic comedies, fall in love, and when they're old and whatever, that happens. People are like rediscovering thing, and they're coming back to like places where they were when they were younger. Uh, but yeah, in general, the processes are the same. And the I don't the directions are the same. It's
The
always like
archetype.
yeah, it's always
Yep.
about being more truthful to yourself, always about being more honest, about being more healthy, about being more productive. Like these tendencies are always in the same direction. And always some obstacles appear and you try to overcome them. Then some of them reappear again. Then they're like, oh, well, I've never seen that happen, but it's only happened 50 times before. You just forgot. So it's like this cyclical aspect to it is very common. Um,
Yeah. Maybe when you have to actually do some actual change, not just here, like get married or whatever, like have a baby, then maybe things will really change.
Yeah, imagine now here he's like completely different. Now the 1,000 miles fucking stare is a different thing. Like now he's like fucking
Million.
blind.
No,
Uh,
I don't know.
he starts playing the piano.
Maybe that's the better thing to do. He'll do it eventually anyway.
Yeah,
So why not now?
and that's the way he's gonna explain it to his kid. Like, do you love me, Daddy? Well, why not?
Why not just die? Die now.
I maybe how you were born. Mommy and Daddy. One day, Daddy was like, Mommy, why not? I'll throw you a fuck and see what happens. And you happened, baby. So. Why not shut the fuck up and go to your room? Because you're fucking annoying me now. you know, that's, imagine how many lies we've been told. We've been told a couple lies, right? I mean, Santa, fucking tooth fairies, fucking stupid shit like that. But then what if we're told other lies? Like, mommy and daddy really loved each other, and then you came, like these sort of lies. What if those are also lies? I just read a story. Actually, I started reading this book. I need to order more books because I always order a few and then I always go through them fast. Now I'm reading this one. It's a short story collection called Axiomatic. But I've never read about this guy, but it's a little
How
more.
did you find him?
I was looking for short story collections,
Ah,
and by someone who I've not read, because I have the tendency to stick to people when I read the same author, and I'm like, okay,
yeah, but
conscious,
still,
yeah, let me
there's so
consciously
many.
try to find someone else
So you read
just to
reviews
see a
or
different style.
shit?
And so I find this guy, and so he had a story about I read last night. It was about a guy who about a future world in which like the future is predicted. Like everyone knows exactly what's going to happen. It's like in this show Devs, right? Everyone knows exactly what's going to happen, and it's deterministic. So you have no power over it. Like you're going to marry your wife when you're 35. She's going to be this is her name. This is what you're going to say. You know all of that, and you do it just like you know it. You do it, but then the guy discovers because the way he knows about this is with this diary. So he has this diary that he writes in the future that now he reads. So he's like, oh, okay, okay, I'm gonna do that. Okay, okay. And then he starts cheating on the wife. And he's like, wait a second, I didn't know I was gonna cheat. Like this is not nowhere in the diary. And he asks this girl she's cheating with, like, what about you? Did you know about this? And she's like, no. And he's like, "Well, haven't you not? And she's like, no, I'm not even. I don't even care. I don't look into the future. I don't write a diary. She's like, what is it? And he gets completely lost. Like he's like, I don't know what's real anymore. I don't know what's and he then like completely disintegrates. It's this one thing just destroys. Now he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know what it matters anymore because I don't know why I say that.
I
Well,
don't know. It's is it a good book?
uh, sort of. It's not the most mind-blowing stuff I've read. But it's okay. I mean, some of the stories are interesting.
Ah, okay, I won't read.
It's more kind of hard sci-fi supposed to be. I mean, more like sci than fi. So some
You
fucking
can maybe try this Limmy guy. You might like it.
which guy?
Please, this Limmy,
Limi.
the guy with the
Ah,
water
yeah, with the
sketch.
water video.
Yeah, his at least his stories are like some of them are super short, like one page or 2 pages.
Man, this is the thing. Like, there's so many flash fiction magazines and markets online, where like you can send a story of 100 words, 500.
Actually, I'll bring it to you when you come here. I have it.
Thanks, man. Oh yeah, that would be nice because I this is the last one I have, and then afterwards I just have the Plato book that I probably never read because I showed you this. I got this fucking fat volume of all the works of Plato,
Yeah.
and like I've sent you some photos of it, which is like and
Yeah, I'll try it Nietzsche. Like it was like 2 months ago maybe. The good and bad. What was the
yeah, but that's easy to read, sort of, right?
easy?
Yeah. Did you like?
Exactly. I just stopped at one point. I just maybe
No
I sh
way. The good between good and evil, you couldn't even.
yeah yeah. Like
Wow.
what the hell is happening?
No, I
I
mean,
mean
then don't even go to fucking Zarathustra because
yeah
it's like fucking incredible.
no
Like,
maybe I should try it again. Maybe I wasn't in the mood for it or something.
well,
Or
and that particular one I liked, and I kind of thought I understood. There were a couple metaphors I still remember. I remember that one. Oh, see, that's another question about the boomer thing about what do you know when you're 30? Like that's one quote from that book, Between Good and Evil. Well, I mean, the most famous one is like the line between good and evil runs through your heart or whatever the fuck, through the middle of your soul. But there was one very interesting, cool metaphor that he wrote about, which was there is this paradox, which is that as soon as you finish building a house, you immediately acquire a piece of knowledge, a piece of information that is crucial to building a house and
hmm,
that you realize that you should have never started to build a house in the first place without this information, but you only get it after you finish the
yeah.
house. And that was
So
like, I really like that fucking idea, which is true. Always, whatever
yeah
you do, you learn from it, from the experience, right? You write a first story, you learn, oh shit, like this is not how you do it.
yeah
And you write the second one, improved on what you learned from the first, and then the third one, it's even better, and the fourth one, and
yeah.
it's like that with everything in life. But unfortunately, a lot of people stop before they even start because they're like, I don't have this piece of information. They see the paradox and
Yeah,
they
I think that
don't
there's so
go.
many things they can't actually be taught. No, someone can show you some stuff, but you actually have to teach yourself in a way.
Yeah,
It's not only with just reading, you have to
yeah.
do, and it's a long process of doing and trying and failing.
Yeah, because also you have different forms of information, right? You have the external one that you find from books and stuff, but then
Yeah,
that's not as important as the internal information, which like
yeah,
that thing actually doesn't work for me. Which at the
yeah.
beginning you don't know. Like you read it, it's like, oh, good, 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 and then you do it, and you're like, it doesn't work for you. Like it's that's not me.
And
That's
that's
not.
why also like in school it was so dumb. Like you learn where there's this call, like some black call, some gray call, like so many different types of calls or whatever it was in like different parts of the country. Like what the fuck? There's and it's just some words. Like in southeastern Bulgaria has this call. Then there's this soil in that part, like red soil or
Uh,
yellow soil. It's like Jesus. Yeah, of course that's okay. You learn it by heart, like you learn to store random information, but it's still like just words that you don't see, you don't feel, you don't understand like what the purpose of them. And it's still like it just this type of learning where you just read stuff. It's still something that you have to do it, experience. You can't just read how to build this house. There's almost no use to you, because it's just these words that you can't actually understand, like how do they apply to real life, you know. Yeah, it's weird.
I don't know. The biggest problem still for me is, and that's another aspect. Like another thing you learn is another way to describe life is really just constantly trying to beat yourself. Like that's what I'm doing. Like that's the definition of one definition of life for me. It's like
Yeah.
trying to defeat a worse version of myself, which I constantly am faced with. Like my biggest enemy is myself. Like I'm lazy. That's one of the biggest problems with me. Like and some people, and those are the laziest people I know. They tell me, man, you're too hard on yourself. Like, man, come on, I'm not. There's people there fucking building fucking space shuttles. There's fucking people like Elon Musk and whatever, and they still have time to fuck idiots like Amber Heard and whatever. But and meanwhile,
Nice.
I'm fucking lazy, And I take notes. I write down like how much time I've spent today. I've written for an hour and a half. It's nothing. It's already like the end of the day. Why didn't I write more than that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's the best competition. You should compete with yourself if you do it right.
Yeah.
That's like the optimal experience that's the perfect challenge. It's yourself. The thing is, yeah, you have to somehow do it in the right way, so you recognize this is like, yeah, maybe the more obvious ways to compete with someone on your level, but otherwise, yeah, if you compare yourself with Elon Musk, you'll get nowhere because he's already there. It's like the leap is too big. No one can do that leap right away. You have to beat someone near
Or
your
if you
level.
compare yourself with that guy, we should talk about that guy, the guy on Instagram you sent me, the influencer.
Oh my god.
This guy is like, that's the next level. That's below
It
Elon Musk.
is, that's more related to my addiction to cringe. I don't know. I mean, I follow several of these guys, and actually, I love them. I love them in some way. Like when they release a video, I get excited. Like, oh my god, they always make me uncomfortable. For some reason, I like that.
Do you want to talk about this, or do you want to preserve this guy's identity so we don't embarrass
I
him?
we can do both.
Yeah.
Alright, so this guy decided he wants to be an influencer. Like that's his goal, and
But
he
he's an
also
influencer in the
thinks,
field of IT. That's very
yeah,
interesting, very particular in the IT in
yeah,
Bulgaria, but also he's talking in English. So also he's targeting the
yeah.
entire world. Like,
And also his English is horrible, not like our amazing A
yeah.
degree. Um, but yeah, he's just doing these videos how to succeed in as a software developer, how to improve your lifestyle, and he's just, I don't know, the way he has this creepy look, like like they say you need some charisma to be an influencer,
Right.
and for some reason he keeps doing that. And he even just from his look, I'm like, oh my god, what the fuck's happening here?
So what do you think is
He,
happening over
and
there? Do you think he has some real confidence, or do you think he tries to do this to force some confidence into himself or something, or overcompensate for something? Do you really believe
I
that
think
he,
there are
he thinks like
many.
I am the shit, I'm really am that good, or what do you think?
No, I wouldn't say he thinks he's that good, but he's. I don't know. I've noticed about this. Also, maybe I still have this issue, but there's some. You probably all can tell this about yourself, where sometimes you live through something and you have actually no outer look, like you have no perspective of actually realizing how you actually look on the outside. You might think I'm the shit, or I'm not that bad, but actually might be super super bad at something, and no one tells you actually really tells you. That's part, maybe that's your friend's problem, that no one is honest with you, and
So you
like
think the problem
gives.
is, first of all, his perception of himself is not accurate, and
Yeah,
secondly,
yeah,
no one
yeah,
is
yeah,
telling him the real
yeah,
truth.
yeah, or maybe not telling him in a way for him to understand it.
Uh-huh.
And I've when I was in school or whatever, and even later, now when I see, for example, I remember there was this Gorna forum, like
Right.
I really liked writing there, and I thought, like, oh my god, it's like the shit. I'm like, so I'm writing this, I'm amazing in this forum, but like several years, because that thing died like long time ago. But like a few years later, I returned and I started reading my comments, like what the fuck was wrong with me then? Well, that was like on purpose, like writing illiterately. I thought, like, oh, that was so cool. No, not grammatically
Right,
correct.
right.
Like, maybe just to piss people off. But I'm like reading it like so fucking irritating. Like when I see
Right.
someone doing that or whatever, like god damn, this retard and things like that.
Mm.
Because it's hard. Maybe you have to somehow. The thing is, this guy hasn't changed in 10 years. I mean, less. I've known him for less, but he hasn't changed that much. He just thought he has to go
This
public.
the influencer guy.
Yeah, he
So
just
you've known him
now.
before he was an influencer?
Yeah. I've known him from 8 years or 9 years ago, and he was always a bit weird. But now he decided to go public, and yeah, maybe that's the way now he can maybe get some reality check. But I'm not sure what to do with it.
But that's funny
But he
because
should.
normally, like normally when you do these things, at least that's what I do is like I ask people first, right? I ask you to say, hey man, I have this idea. Maybe we want to do this podcast here. What do you think? I ask people, right? So do you think he didn't ask anyone, or do you think he asked and people were like, yeah, man, we should do it. You should
Yeah, I
definitely.
don't think he has someone to ask either, and I don't think he did. The thing is also it's part of this. I'm not sure if that's the case, probably not. But also there's this culture. Maybe that's some kind of dystopian future that we're facing right now, where everyone is scared to offend you.
Right.
It has always been that, but now it's maybe harder. You know, no one really wants to tell you the real thing, not to offend you, and that can be worse in the long run for you.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Especially friends are sometimes the last people want to. Again, talking about this, I mentioned it last time. This guy Alain de Botton, because I was re-listening to some old videos of his, and he was talking about this too. That like friends can sometimes be the least honest because they're like, listen, I just want to hang out with this guy and smoke some weed and like have fun. I don't want to tell him the truth. Like if I tell him the truth, it will be offensive. I like the guy. I don't want to tell him that. You know what I mean?
The thing is, it's also double-edged sword because sometimes you really shouldn't tell,
Right.
because even when you start like making music, if I make some song and I show it to someone like it's my first song, of course
Right.
it will be shit,
Right.
and I might not realize, but maybe it's better for me to not realize that. So I can be like, oh my god, it's amazing. Then later I'll make the second song and I go, fuck, the first one was bad. But now the second one, and it's also probably horrible, but it's better for me not to realize that, as long as I progress. Because if right away some friend hears, oh fuck, this is complete shit, like he's honest and he's right, he's correct. But that would, I shouldn't know in
Right.
that case.
Hmm.
So
Interesting.
it's also tricky.
So what do you think about my stories?
They're amazing, man. You should continue doing them.
No, I'm really curious. Like,
No.
I've always encouraged everyone to be honest completely with me because I mean, at this point, I don't have like an ego problem, so it's okay if people tell me, because that I can only
Do
learn.
you believe that? You don't? I mean, it's because everyone has. That's normal to have.
Yeah,
What
no,
do you
I
mean
mean,
you
listen,
don't
every
have
time I
any?
receive rejections, all these stories, I told you I have this Excel
Yeah, but
spreadsheet.
still, you feel disappointment a bit.
Yes, of course I do. Yeah, but I
So
always try to learn from that. I'd be like,
yeah.
okay, well, so what can I do to improve this? Because me personally, I like them. If I didn't, I wouldn't write them,
Yeah.
And so
Well, from the four ones I've read, I definitely like see that I would say they get better,
right,
and I really like the third one mostly with this detective.
right,
I guess the first three they were in the same kind of style, and
yeah,
they were about something. This other one was just this flow of consciousness. But
yeah,
yeah, I would say they're getting better. And the third one I think, was solid. Like you can really say it's a good story, like
right.
from every
So
perspective.
check out the fourth, which is also on the website, The Touch of God. Most people have told me that's maybe the best. And then also another one I wrote, A Cup of Coffee Later, which I can send it to you. So those two I think are maybe the best. So that was the fourth and the ninth. Um, that's based on like what people think. Most people that have read most of them.
Mhm.
And I kind of agree with that. But like I say, I'm biased because I like all of it. Right? If I didn't, I wouldn't do it. Like I only send it when I think, oh yeah, that's cool. I think that's pretty much it. I can't change it anymore without completely destroying it.
The
So
thing is, for example, like Vonnegut, I really love his books. Like some of them are, yeah, I should maybe read them again. But they're like fuck, they're like perfect in my eyes. Like every page, like damn. And I read his stories, like when he started like writing, also like submitting for publishers, and I liked almost none of them. Maybe
Right.
just one. And he had like 50 probably, like a lot, like 3 books of just stories, and I read all of 3 of them.
So
And I
why do you
liked.
think why you didn't like them? Like what didn't you like about them?
They weren't in his novel. They had nothing to do with the novels. Like they weren't that like that smart and funny or sarcastic, and the it was you could tell that he was just starting with writing. It was just trying stuff, and actually even his first novel, it was also did. I think it's his worst. Like the style was different, and there was nothing funny to me about it. It was just actually even the genre was different. It was this dystopia. A player piano is the name, and then afterwards you can see how he like finds himself and starts like really
Yeah.
becoming what he's known for.
That's something I've been thinking about a lot with all kinds of arts. Is there's always usually like especially in visual arts and paintings and stuff. People talk about um, periods. Like oh
Yeah,
that's the Cubism time of Picasso. Or that's the
yeah.
whatever time of this guy. That's when he was doing
It
that.
makes sense, yeah. The things no one
So
told him this is shit and he believed him in the
yeah,
beginning.
and but what's very interesting is sometimes it's not a progression where it's like, oh, shit gets better, 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 and constantly better. Sometimes it's like that, and then it kind of gets like that.
Mm.
And
Uh-huh.
like I don't know, like
Yeah,
Dali,
makes
for
sense, yeah,
example.
yeah.
Like there is like a peak, and then it's like this is not the
Yeah,
best,
Van
but he
Gogh is
keeps
also
going.
like that, yeah. But
And I've always been
it's
afraid
still
of that
good.
because
Yeah.
I'm afraid that what if how do you know that you've reached the peak over and you're going downhill? Like that's a very scary concept to me.
I would say you know it in the end because you might have a comeback, maybe.
Okay, yeah, that's a hopeful way of thinking about it. That's a positive way of thinking about it.
I'm just trying to think of some example. Like someone became shit and then was like back with something amazing again.
In music, maybe in some
But that's
longer
oh,
lasting
so
bands
that's rare. I mean, I would say Metallica, but
Eric
they're
Clapton,
like
wasn't he like all over the place, ups and downs? Like Clapton had like a return in the '90s with the unplugged stuff and with the Victor Marseilles and he was like since the '60s essentially since Cream, but then he had like ups and downs and
hmm.
I think the Beatles
No, yeah.
like Paul
The thing is,
McCartney.
if you
If you
have
think
like
about Paul McCartney, also, if you think about there's like these
yeah,
phases.
I really liked his not the last one, but the second to last album was he had some very nice songs. Think on the level of the Beatles. I would say it was very underrated. His New was the name, I think. Um, yeah, no, I was thinking about if someone was at really like the peak, so oh my god, this is like his thing, his one song or album or whatever. Then he was kind of going down, 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 and after some time he made like higher peak, like not just like again good, but like even better.
I don't know.
That's what I was. If there's
Nothing
some
comes to
example.
mind at the moment with me. Um,
Fucking know. Maybe when they change styles.
but also an
But still.
interesting part about this is also the nostalgia element to it, right? Because you think about it, oh, you associate that with that particular moment in time and how fucking powerful, and the memory of it builds this myth about it. Like, oh wow, it was amazing. Maybe it wasn't, because everything that's new. We have this. Most people have this fucking tendency. Some new thing comes out, and you're like, it's shit. The old stuff was good. This new shit is bad. Like you don't have it as much, but many people. I have it. Most people have this um, skepticism about brand new stuff. But then when time
Mhm.
passes and you look back and you're like, oh, remember 2012 and that song was playing. Oh man, it was so cool. Like this time
Oh yeah, yeah,
adds
maybe yeah.
some sort of value to it. So maybe the peak will always be in the past in a sense because you always have this fucking romanticized vision of the past. Like, oh wow, that was so
Yeah,
fucking
but
cool. That
still it. So but still it can be. Yeah, this still might. There still should be some example of like a peak that got built up, but it's still just in the past. Like both peaks are in the past.
right,
Yeah, but still,
right.
it's still like kind of so subjective and it's hard to define. Like there are peaks everywhere. It always starts with some peak, then it goes higher to some peak. But
Yeah, I
yeah, of
think
course, yeah.
I'm like the first thing I said. I think of Eric Clapton, right? Because he had a peak in the '60s with Cream. He had a peak in the like '80s with like Layla and like
Yeah.
these stuff, and so he had a
Also,
couple of
yeah.
peaks.
And John Lennon, like his Imagine song was
Oh,
after
right.
every
Oh,
everything.
that's a great example. That's a
Yeah,
great example.
yeah, I guess. That's probably one of his last things he did. Oh, and also Queen, like the Show Must Go On is on their last album.
Right,
It's
right.
one
right.
of their greatest songs.
Pressured by time, right? Pressured by the circumstances and everything. So interesting. That produced something really great at the end.
Yeah, and there's that album is weird one because he was very sick when they were recording that.
Yeah.
Actually, even the song "Show Must Go On," everyone was like super surprised that he managed to sing that in his state, and
Yeah.
it was never performed live because that was it for him afterwards.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
It's pretty sad if you listen to the lyrics in that context. Damn. Oh fuck! Let's talk about when I thought about crying at stuff. Actually, I cried a bit at that Fantastic Fungi movie
Wow.
yesterday. Yeah, well, damn, it was so beautiful.
It's a beautiful movie.
Yeah. So yeah, this Fantastic Fungi documentary.
Or fungi. I never know what fungi.
Fungi. Yeah, they said it. I listened. It made like,
Yeah.
fungi.
It's a great movie, man. So, and I was surprised that they managed to get this fucking Brie Larson of fucking Marvel, Captain Marvel to narrate it. The voice of the girl at the beginning and the end.
Ah,
This is
the
Brie
the
Larson.
mushroom voice.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
that's
mean,
the girl. For,
Uh,
that's.
I mean, it's not only in the end. That's even the start.
Yeah, the start and in the end. They like she appears at.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the whole structure was really well made.
Yeah,
And I
like
had no
the-
idea. I had no idea about this underground life of the Mycelium. What was the
Mycelium.
word?
Yeah,
Mycelium.
that it's like 60% of the soil that we step in.
What the fuck? No, they communicate through it. So like
Right.
there's this whole connection from fungi under the forest. That's like every tree is communicating with every other tree through this
In
fungi.
this movie, so in this
What?
movie, they try to stick to the really most scientific stuff. But if you listen to Paul Stamets he's been twice on the Joe Rogan Experience, right? So one time a long time ago, and more recently a couple months ago. And in
Yeah.
both of these appearances, he goes a little bit further with his speculation. And with this documentary, they try to keep it very kind of briefly, like really more and more to the ground. But he
Yeah.
goes even further. For example, what they were saying in the documentary that, they're in this underworld. They're the lord of this underworld in the forest, in the ground. What he was saying.
But the things that in the documentary they probably stick to facts. I mean that's a fact.
Yes,
That's
yes,
proven. you know.
Yes, that's a fact.
Yeah.
But the next level, the speculation, one of the things that Paul Stamets was talking about was, what if, because we think of it this way, like things cause and effect. You don't know which comes first or which comes second, but we know for a fact that the mushrooms were first. That the mushrooms, like in the beginning of the movie, they're older than plants, older than animals. They've been on this planet before any other life form. So they're the first multicellular organism, right? So he was saying, what if they're actually in control over certain processes and they set them in motion first to create conditions that are suitable for them and for other life forms. So for example, he was speculating about these mushrooms. I forgot the name of them, but one of those saprophytic saprophytic forms of mushrooms that feed on dead trees in the forest. So he's saying this mushroom first attacks the roots of some trees, eats them, and they die and they fall, and so it eats the whole tree, and it creates a meadow. Like, in the mountains, if you walk through the mountains and there's forest and forest and forest, all of a sudden there's a meadow. There's like an empty space where there's just grass. And he was saying these mushrooms are creating that, these conditions. They're kind of eating that. They're making the space, because what happens then is all the herd like the animals are coming to eat the grass, and they poop on the grass. So the mushrooms grow on the poop. They put nutrients in that meadow that the mushrooms create, because then the elks are coming in, and all the bigger animals, and they're pooping and shitting there and everything. So they're kind of they're in the beginning of this cycle, and they're setting up things in the forest, and they're saying, okay, we're gonna have that area where the animals are gonna poop there, the mushrooms are gonna grow there, then the spores are gonna go with the wind. So like maybe they're kind of orchestrating much more than we realize. And that's what he was speculating. Again, this was not in the documentary, maybe because of time, maybe because it's too much speculation, not that much fact. But it makes you think like how much are they actually in control of. And
I think what was fascinating to me was the way, I mean, they also this visualization of the underground,
yeah,
and the whole connection with every plant. Like that's exactly what you feel when you're tripping. This huge connection with everything.
right.
It's like what the fuck? It's like how what is happening there?
Yeah.
How is this so connected?
Yeah. And so another thing that he mentions there, Paul Stamets, is he talks about, the intelligence of mushrooms. Intelligence in the sense that there's neuroconnectivity between them. And, it's not the intelligence in the human sense. But remember a couple episodes of this podcast ago when we were discussing, so are we the only conscious creatures? Or are we at a different level of consciousness compared to other creatures? And you said it's a different level. So if that's the case, then what if their intelligence that they have is just so far from ours that there's no other way to communicate with them?
Yeah, I think it's not exactly.
Them, maybe.
It's not different level, but different branch, kind of.
Right. And so he was. I remember this was like in the first podcast he was talking about this experiment in Japan that some people used mycelium to kind of test some assumptions. And so in Japan they claim that the railway system, which was built after the war and everything, is the most optimized railway system ever made. Like every line, like from point A to point B, is the most optimal way to get from point A to point B. So if you put on a map all the cities and towns in Japan and you draw straight lines, that is the fastest, most economical way to use the resource. There is no spillage of metal.
Yeah, but the thing is, this can also be calculated with math.
Right. But do you know the story that I'm going to tell, or do you remember this part?
I will. Yeah, no.
Yeah. No. Just to finish it. So basically, they do this map, and for cities they use like something that the mushrooms like to eat, like some carbs or something, and they put the mycelium randomly somewhere, and it starts branching out in different directions, and pretty much it realizes, oh wait, so there are these points where the food is, and everything else is empty. Okay, so they start going straight to the points. So they basically recreate this metro and railway system even more optimally than the actual Japanese system. And so then the scientists were like, well, what if? I mean, this is just a simple experiment, but they were thinking that is a way for this organism to exhibit intelligence in a way, right? Economic thing, and the way to communicate with it would be to give it tasks like a computer. You give it a task like this to solve, a problem to solve, and the problem is the input and the solution is the output. So you can maybe somehow create a way to communicate with it if you give it tasks like this that mushroom understands and responds with solutions to them, and then you read the solutions and you're like, okay. So I mean, obviously this is just theoretical, probably very difficult to achieve. But in that specific example, that's one example of how you can communicate with it and see the intelligence manifested and be like, okay, they solved this problem that we gave them. So they gave us an answer. We ask a question, they give us an answer, right? So, that's a very interesting concept. And then again, the question whether if you're eating these specifically psychedelic mushrooms, if this is what's happening, if you're somehow then thinking like they are or seeing, they're seeing, I don't know, feeling what they're feeling. Because the feeling of a trip is very surreal. It's very alien-like. It's like a different. You don't feel like a human being. You don't feel like humans think. It's
exactly. It's like you connect to this other consciousness exactly like that. Yeah. I don't know. It's I think that might be the next thing that maybe they'll realize like this technology or whatever is that's not true. I mean because they mentioned in the documentary they were making a lot of progress with in science with like experiments and research in mushrooms.
Yeah.
But then these hippies came and they like started doing this crazy shit in the 60s, and then Reagan stopped it. Like fuck no, that's horrible.
Yeah.
And he stopped everything, even the science research. But now in the 2000s they revived it. So
yeah.
soon maybe there'll be like big breakthroughs there.
Yeah, there should be like that's the big problem because it's illegal in so many places. It's so difficult to make research, legit scientific
And
research.
they always put it in the same section as drugs, you know.
Yeah, it's all drugs. It's all bad. It's drugs. Yeah, uh, yeah. It's hard, man. But you know that's the thing. Like, and the end was really funny. As you think like, oh man, we got it, man. We got it. This is the next thing, and you realize this is like maybe the oldest thing there is, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like this has always been around. It's like always has been there for us to discover at any point, you know.
I don't
So-
know. Hopefully, I will get more in that direction.
Right.
Because
And then
all
there's,
this
you know,
other-
they talked about the stone tape hypothesis, which is Terence McKenna's idea, right?
Yeah.
But then they didn't mention the other kind of even more wacky idea. I don't think, did I mention this? Like that we're a kind of symbiotic organism, that he had that idea also. So
No.
the next idea was one idea he had was the stone ape hypothesis from the documentary, which is basically that these mushrooms being maybe a very important component of the diet of the early hominids, they might have contributed to our intelligence, you know, and our brain capacity expanding rapidly in a short time. But another theory he had was that you know, you have this interesting idea where, you know, yeah, I think I've mentioned this, where you're like on one hand, we are these animals, right? And these fucking primates, and we're territorial and we're aggressive and we fuck and rape and kill and fucking shit in our mouths, whatever the fuck we do. But then, on the other hand, we can transcend all that with our intelligence. And you have monks that are setting themselves on fire and they're fucking meditating and they're not
Yeah.
feeling the pain and they're like the power of the human intellect, and people are like transcending all of that with our intelligence. So it's almost like these two separate things: the physical, the body, you know, this ape, and then this intelligence, which is almost like alien in a sense. So, and we know of other things, like for example, we know that 60% of the water on this planet is from space, coming from different asteroids, comets that have like the water has evaporated in our atmosphere and is part of our oceans from, you know, billions of years. And what if some spores of mushrooms have come from space, you know, on some asteroid or whatever, and they have come to Earth and grown, and they by themselves are not intelligent per se. They're what they are now. But when you eat them, the apes, which the way they are, when they eat these space mushrooms, then another thing happens, and a human being is formed through evolution, which is like a third party, like a symbiotic organism, which shares this alien intelligence and this human ape or body origin, you know. So that's a very wacky idea, but it's in a sense it's interesting, you know. It sounds a little bit plausible to me. I don't know.
Yeah, they mentioned that. Yeah, it helped evolution, but I'm not sure they said it's alien.
No, they didn't. I'm saying
Yeah,
that's a different
yeah,
thing.
Yeah, but it's kind of expanding the same theory in a way.
But no, they know for a fact that, you know, with the things that they mentioned, like it improves connectivity in your brain. The different parts of your brain that normally don't communicate now communicate during the experience. Also, it's like it boosts neurogenesis. It has neurogenesis.
And also because of most people, yeah, most 99% of people are like in denial of this. No, like you can't. They won't try it ever, but because they made these experiments on these people which were dying. They had these terminal diseases, and they're like, well, all right, like what else is there? And they're like so happy afterwards that they actually did that.
And I wanted to talk about this also because it's a very interesting point you bring, which is that, you know, they were testing this on cancer patients because for some reason I think they were the only ones who they could get approval to do this.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
and you know how a big part of this experience is this ego death, and you kind of feel
Yeah.
like you're dying, this sort of thing, which then alleviates the anxiety of death and fear of death. So these people
Yeah.
who are facing death in a very short period of time are suddenly not afraid of it. But I also wanted to mention the fact that it not necessarily has to be the physical form of death and the benefits for people who are about to die very shortly. It also is important to note that this death and not being afraid of death can be manifested positively in different aspects of your life, even if you're not in this situation, even if you're not like these people, you know,
Yeah.
terminally ill,
Yeah.
because there is death in so many other things. Like for example, your dreams can die, your ideas. You can be stuck in some situation in your life which you're like, oh man, you're grinding, you're trying to, no, I keep going this, I can't give up, I gotta keep, and then this experience might open some new possibilities, some new solutions that you were not previously considering, and you're like, well, listen, I'm not afraid to die, to kill this idea off. I'm not afraid to witness the death of this dream that I had for so many years because it's not working for me. So all of a sudden you drop it and you begin to do something else that maybe is healthier for you and better. So this death and not being afraid of death makes you take risky decisions in life, which are very rewarding in many cases, and ideas that are more creative than you normally do, like things that are outside of your comfort zone, things that are not even common for your kind of character, you know. And those things happen after these experiences as well. So as a result of this overcoming death, you know, you overcome death in different aspects in your life, you know, not just the physical death, but many other things.
Yeah, it gives you a different perspective on everything.
Yeah.
I should do that again too. But yeah, maybe actually soon. Maybe it's time. It's been more than 2 years now.
Yeah.
But yeah. I don't know, this Sibo writes that the Quran was written on mushrooms. That yeah, everyone says that.
Yeah.
Like the. I mean, I don't know, but probably like they say
I-
about the Bible too. You know, like all the
Oh yeah,
religious.
yeah. I mean,
It makes
yeah, there was
sense.
this book. By the way, I wanted to buy this book because Joe Rogan talks about it many times, and you know that there's this very interesting book that was like forbidden, not forbidden, but like they stopped producing it, and now I wanted to buy it, but man, it's like 300 euros. You can buy a copy of this book on Amazon, or because it's out of production, so only the people who have a
It's
copy
the
can sell it. So
the Keanu Reeves book.
no, it's like a book about. It's a book written by a guy. I forgot the name, but it was like an Italian name, Matteo something. I don't remember. But the guy was basically talking about like these different connections between like the Bible and mushrooms, and how you know, the early pre-Christian pagan psychedelic cults in Europe, especially, were all based around mushrooms. And when supposedly Christianity came around, you know, all of these tribes were converted. They kept some of the traditions, or they kept some of the like I don't know, some of the symbolism from these pagan traditions, and they kind of stick them into Christianity. So you can find these very old, very early Christian icons and paintings of Jesus holding mushrooms, or Mother Mary holding mushrooms instead of baby
Yeah.
Jesus, and these different things where, because people knew, listen, the closest thing we know to a religious experience is mushrooms.
Yeah.
Now they're telling us this Jesus guy, so I don't know, maybe he was on mushrooms then, you know. So they kind of try to combine it, because they were like, they're telling us this guy was a big prophet, so he must have been like on mushrooms all the time.
Makes sense, yeah.
So this
Yeah.
guy wrote a whole book about it, like really analyzing very old scriptures and finding these connections, and you know, like saying, yeah, Jesus is a mushroom or something like that. And that book was prohibited by the church or something, and they pulled it off. And now it's like
And
very
this church is so paranoid. Like if they're so like confident that they speak truth, why are they prohibiting like so many things like are?
They had a problem.
So
I remember when I was a kid, like
thing
they
is-
had a problem with Harry Potter. They were like, kids don't read Harry Potter because it's witches and witchcraft.
It's always like this. It's such a red flag when people prohibit things. Like why, you know?
No.
It's
Yeah, it's the worst thing. It's like in principle, you know, like you shouldn't prohibit critical thinking. You should always consider
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
whatever
You
it
should-
is. Like listen to the other person and then.
But yeah,
make
the
that-
thing is, if it's wrong, you should make a point why it's wrong, not prohibit it and say don't at all consider that.
Yeah.
You know, there should be discussion about everything. Even
Yeah, try to say like we read this thing and our opinion is that is not correct because of ABCD. But
Yeah,
if you wanna whatever, if you wanna read it, read it.
yeah. But yeah, maybe they are actually dangerous books because yeah, people are like they're very like, affectionate. They might get affected in a bad way from some dumb, stupid shit. But yeah, maybe it's tricky. But still,
And that was part of it, by the way. But when Terence McKenna was writing and all of that, and you mentioned, you know, the war on drugs, part of history when they banned everything. it was part of well, I would call it almost a conspiracy theory where people were saying, like people like Timothy Leary and Terence McKenna, that they're really attacking all things, also psychedelics, because they are anti-establishment drugs. Because if everyone all of a sudden took mushrooms today,
Yeah.
and tomorrow they'll be
Yeah.
like, fuck the government, or fuck this
Yeah.
rule, or fuck this
Like no one will go to work tomorrow.
no one would want to consciously hurt people or make something that like lie, or pretend, or so the theory was, these guys were saying, well, they're doing it on purpose because they know the power of this substance. If it was available on a mass scale, people would not be cool with half the shit that we're doing, and that was the time
Yeah.
of Vietnam and everything. So they were like brainwashing kids, go to war, die for us, and they were like, if everyone ate mushrooms, they'd be like, no one would go to war, no one would listen to them. And maybe there's truth to it. Maybe they were aware of it. Maybe they were like, because they were experimenting with acid, with LSD in the army, right around the same time. They were doing they were finding ways to maybe use this during the war. But maybe from these experiences they came to the conclusion, you know what, we better ban this because people are kind of we are achieving the opposite effect. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, in that case for sure it was a bad ban. Yeah. But still, there's some bad things that for sure should be banned. Like heroin or
Yeah.
some other shit like that.
Yeah, there's some people I've listened. I remember there was this guy on also on Joe Rogan podcast who's very much into like drug research and everything, but he's like the total extreme, and I don't agree with him because his position was like nothing should be banned because there must be, even if we don't know about it yet, there must be some benefit to anything. I don't agree with this. I do think that they're bad drugs, bad things like heroin, cocaine. These are things we know that they're bad, and I don't think it's like, oh, we haven't found out yet a way to use them. It's kind of naive to think that. I think or maybe if there are some benefits, that they're so overshadowed by the negative aspect. So yeah, but the opposite is true for psychedelics, where the negative side effects are so minute, and like you really, even if you try hard to find some
Yeah.
evidence, it's so hard to find cases where like people really suffered from it, and usually it's related to the way it was administered or the conditions or some other.
Yeah, some outlying case.
Yeah.
But probably that wasn't the reason for it at all. Like
If
now
you
with
look at
now with
especially
vax.
especially mushrooms are maybe the safest drug ever. Statistics, if you look at that, no one has ever died
Yeah.
from mushroom like this. I mean, or the numbers are like the smallest out of every possible substance ever. Like they're much times smaller than weed when it comes to the statistics.
It's everything is super hypocritical. Like from alcohol, it's obviously proven how bad it is for you,
Yeah.
and still it's legal. It's fine. You can get wasted and die from it.
Yeah, and then
it
and
will
then
still
in the
be.
states especially, like the bigger problem is that competition, right? From the alcohol and from the tobacco companies. So weed, for example, is opposed by the tobacco companies because they're like, if people start smoking weed, then some of them will stop smoking or start smoking much less tobacco. Same goes for other medication, for I don't know, sleeping pills, for example, for anti-anxiety stuff, for Xanax, for these fucking all kinds of shits, which they're huge industries, right? The American pharma, they make billions. So
Yeah.
they're like the concern is very much economical there, and the same is for mushrooms. If they might prevent people from using antidepressants or other medications or other things or abusing.
Oh yeah, and the other thing they said is like the worst about this corporation and mushrooms is that you just take it once and you're done. But they want to feed you constantly, these pills that you have to get addicted, and that's what they
Yeah,
want.
absolutely.
Otherwise, you just pay
That's
for these
perfect.
mushrooms and it's cheap. You grow it, pay it, and then, you're done.
Yeah.
So
It's true.
yeah,
Yeah, that's true. Like the pharma companies, they're not in the business of curing you; they're in the business of treating you
yeah.
continually, all the time. And yeah, and it's fucked up. And
Sad.
yeah,
But
but we are fortunate to know this shit, and so it's nice.
and also our viewers. Actually, has anyone tried it? I think we're just talking about it. No one from our viewers has tried it. Except Devi, I guess, and Augie, but they're not here now.
Where they're not viewers, they're part of the family, they're part of the universe,
Yeah, I guess.
contributors. Yeah,
No, actually, it would be nice to actually convince people to try, but it's hard. You, if you were actually your friends, then you would maybe go for it. But
I was talking with Ogi the other day, and I was like, he was talking about the fact that like around my birthday, which when we did stuff there, and he was saying he talked to people back home, and he says everyone was saying, dude, are you fucking crazy?
yeah,
Like I know this one guy who did it, or I did it, and it was the worst. It was terrible. It was, and he's like, uh, you know, I realize how important it is, the way that you set it up and like the way you facilitated. And I was like, he was thanking me, that I did it in such a particular
hmm,
way that I kind of helped everyone through this process. Like with you, remember, like it was the
yeah,
same. Like it doesn't take much. It's nothing crazy. But think about it. It's no wonder. Like you take a young girl, for example, she goes out, she tries to impress some guy. I don't know. They drop some pills. She takes something. Could be anything. Could be some psychedelic even, which is good. But she takes it outside, and there's some loud music, and she
yeah,
doesn't know what's
yeah,
happening. And some dude is grinding his dick up to her. And she's like, "Oh, what the fuck is going on?" And she has a terrible experience. Well, no fucking wonder, Like it's you become like
that's how you set it up. Like there's no other way for this to go than be terrible.
right.
And also these stories that they say, I usually like ask, well, like if there was this guy who lost his mind, like I usually ask, like, well, what more about this guy? Well, yeah, he was doing all this fucking all kinds of drugs. Like, yeah, so it was not just mushrooms, he was taking all this shit all the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, he went insane at some point, but so there is no single case where someone took it once and just that and something happened to him.
Yeah.
But still, people think that.
Yeah, there's a lot of anecdotal stuff, and there's like, oh, he said, she said, that sort of stuff, and you never know. Like, you never know what's
Yeah,
like
and it's a
real.
friend of a friend of a friend of a.
Yeah.
Yeah, but people really get affected by that. Like with lottery, there's a friend of a friend of a friend that won this amount of money, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, that's true." So I'll go and buy some lottery tickets. And with that, like a friend of a friend would like had a bad experience. Oh my god, this is horrible.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's not for everyone, but I think that in the right conditions, it could be. Like with mushrooms
Yeah.
in particular, they're that safe and they're that nice that in the right conditions, it could be something that could be, and one day maybe somehow part of culture. Just like it is kind of socially acceptable that I don't know, you turn 18, you go to a first, I don't know, you go to a party, you get wasted, you puke, and everyone's like, haha, you just got wasted for the first time. It's part of becoming a grown up, blah, blah, blah. And, no one has the same attitude to bad trips, for example. No one is saying, oh, well, he had a bad trip, but you know what? Now he learned so much from it. Now, no, everyone's like, no, no, this is the worst thing ever. It's
Mm.
it's so completely like, why is this huge discrepancy? Like, oh, that guy got drunk and he puked and he got raped and he crashed his car, but now he's cool. Look at like, there, what? And then at the same time, someone, I don't know, cried for 5 minutes on mushrooms, and then he's like, it's the worst in the world. I saw him cry, and he was like,
Mm.
well, people don't know much about this, and
Yeah, we should
remember,
start.
remember when we were talking? There was actually, I very much remember this conversation. I came close. It was next to your place. Remember, there was this Sotkanica, like a couple of
Oh
buildings
yeah,
away.
yeah. You talked about ayahuasca there,
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
mushrooms.
That
Was
was
it mushrooms?
ayahuasca. Yeah, that was the
Yeah,
very first
ayahuasca.
time
Yeah,
that I read it, and I was like, man, I just read about this thing, and we were reading
yeah.
on Wikipedia, and I was like, look at this, look at it,
Oh yeah,
and
I
I was like, I
remember.
gotta do this, I gotta do this, and then a couple months later, I did it.
Yeah,
Uh,
fuck man. And I'm
I didn't
still
know
planning and delaying.
almost anything about this back then. Like I didn't know almost
You
shit.
re-
And the funniest story was the way I actually learned about it was the most bizarre fucking way. Like, so I'm a huge fan of David Cronenberg's. David Cronenberg is this Canadian director famous for body horror movies like The Fly is
the,
maybe one of the famous
this
movies.
book, The Naked Lunch, right?
Yes. So he had a movie. So he had one summer, like uh, 3 years almost ago. Like I watched like all of his movies, and one of the movies was The Naked Lunch, and I was like, this movie's a little different, even for him. It's not exactly what. And so I realized, oh, it's actually based on a book by William Burroughs. So I read the book, and William Burroughs, one of the great American writers of the 20th century, was also struggling with addiction many years. And then I read this version of this book, which by the end of it, it was a revised public, like a second edition or either third edition, I don't know. So the guy, when he was writing this edition, was already by the end of his life, so he was already sober and everything. So he returned to it, and at the end there's this postscript, and he says, I did write this many years ago, and I was mostly, and I was a junkie then and everything, and it took me so many years to kick all these substances and get healthy. But here I list all the drugs that I've taken and what I think about them, and how I kicked every one of them. So he says, okay, heroin, this helps, this, don't do this, do barbiturates, do therapy, do blah, blah, blah. Then cocaine, then this, and then he lists all of these, and then he says, okay, ayahuasca. And he says, ayahuasca I've never done, but I've heard that it's good, no side effects, natural substance, not addictive, used to fight depression and addiction, and yeah, it's generally pretty cool. And I'm like, okay, that's an interesting entry. Like, unlike all the other substances, there's just positives in this one. And then I'm like, that's such a weird.
And that's the one he hasn't tried.
Right. And I'm like, that's such a weird name. Like, I've never heard of that. Oh, wait, I've heard of that. And then I remember, yeah, I watched it on the Joe Rogan Experience. I remember, in particular, the episode with Dorian Yates, the bodybuilder, who's also.
Damn, you were watching Joe Rogan then.
Yeah.
Damn,
and I remember the Dorian Yates episode, and I was like, that's it, man. I remember this guy. Because he's this like 5-time Mr. Olympia, and he's now very much into it too. And he actually, I think he funds one of the centers in Costa Rica called Soltara, which I have some people in common on Facebook from this center. I see him often going there with Dennis McKenna also. So anyway, so he's like, he was talking about it, and I'm like, yeah, that's it. I found it. I watched it again, and then I watched Dennis McKenna, and then I watched everything, and then I watched Paul Stamets, and then the whole thing started. And I just like reread and watched a bunch of stuff for like 3 months until I was convinced, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. And but yeah, I mean, that's how it started. Like, weirdly, with a very difficult book, because this Naked Lunch book is fucking crazy. It's so hard to read, and so like the guy was on all kinds of drugs when he was writing it, and he says that he doesn't remember writing most of it. Like it was that, like, there's things like, because he was homosexual also. And he was writing about like these anuses that are like coming out of your butt like snakes, and coming out and like, talking to you, and like the buttholes were chasing him around trying to suck his dick, like these insane fucking filthy stories of just filth and yeah, monkeys and aliens and these weird things. And if you're not into that, then you can at least watch the movie, because the movie is a little more digestible and well, not as extreme as that. But Naked Lunch by David Cronenberg, it's a great movie. And
Wait, wasn't that's the director with the weird monsters, right? Or no?
Well, with the body horror movies, like
Yeah, the one in Rick and Morty where they.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Because they associate them usually with the body horror genre, where it's a lot of gore and deformed bodies, and like The Fly, or Videodrome, or there's a bunch of movies he made, and which is oddly enough, like he stopped doing that. He did a bunch of movies like that in the 70s and 80s, and then he graduated to a completely different cinema. And now, like, the last movie I remember was oddly enough a movie about Jung and Freud. It was a movie with Michael Fassbender and Viggo Mortensen and Keira Knightley. It was called The Method, I think. It wasn't the greatest movie, but and then he did another movie with Viggo Mortensen. It was he did, I think, 2 or 3, like Eastern Promises, I think it was called. So he did a couple of like mainstream movies in the last 10, 15 years. They were very good. They were nothing to do with the old horrors, but yeah, the guy is still working, and he's a great guy. Wow, it's almost been 3 hours, man.
We should maybe end it.
I just realized.
I'm getting paralyzed.
Yeah. Well, thanks, man. Guys, thank you for listening. Ivo Grant, all
Yeah.
the other guys, Georgi Georgiev, Iliev, or whatever. And yeah, talk to you soon. Stay safe. Wash your hands, wash your legs, all kinds of extremities and areas in your body. And wear masks now. Apparently, it's you have to. And yeah, talk to you soon, guys.
Bye.